All right, welcome everyone to the second season of the Rise of the Mortarchs. Just a little check, make sure everything is all good and going. Just make sure everyone can hear me as well. So we do have our semi-finalists all set, and we are about to get into the first game. So yeah, everything looks good. And I think we should be just about ready to get on into the first one. We'll take, because this, so far we have the bracket set up. We are waiting on one more of the quarterfinals to finish up. Otherwise, we will be getting into the semifinals with Talcor and Ronin as our first matchup. So it looks like we just have one person here. Now, is this the same link that I sent out in the Discord? Oh, yeah, it looks like everything is all live there. All right. Let's let the contestants know we are live and ready to go. All right, so switch on over to the bracket. All right, so yeah, Legion is saying link is good. And yeah, here we are, Ronin and Talcor. So we have Talcor leading the Empire, and Ronin will be leading the Dark Elves for the first matchup. We will be on Oak and Hammer as well. So let's get right on into this first match. We also do have Manbreed as well joining us as a spectator. He is going to be streaming in Russian for those who prefer the Russian over the English casting. So let's get right on into this first match. All right, yeah, everything's looking good. All right, so getting loaded on in. So yeah, for those who are, I guess, new to the Rise of the Mortarch, this is the second season. Our first one was about, I don't know, it's been a little while since we've done it. It's been a couple months there. Imperator did win the first season, and so now we have a fresh season up where it's going to be, of course, Talcor, and we have Ronin. He did make it to the finals the last round, so we'll see if he's able to do a repeat performance this time. So for the Empire build, which is going to be led by Talcor, we do have great swords and kind of a mix of spearmen as well in that front line, as well as the silver bullets and just a regular unit of handgunners. For the Lord, let's look like we have Marcus Wolfhart, and just a little check to see what his kit's going to be bringing. He does have the net, the hunter snare, and the amber bow, so he isn't bringing the focus shot, though it's not necessarily going to be a whole lot of good targets for that anyways. We do have the amethyst wizard going to be here as well with Spirit Leech, and then for the mobility we do have Knights of the Blazing Sun, 3 units of those, and the Hammer of the Witches, fairly decent cannon unit. Now they will pretty much be countered by bolt throwers, and it does look like as we swing on over to the Dark Elf army there is going to be some of those on the field. So we do have 2 bolt throwers, front line's going to be spearmen, and just some bleak swords thrown into the mix. Nothing too elite. We don't have any of the Hargoness executioners, but we do have some witch elves looking to get things rampage into some inopportune engagements. And we do have a Death Hag as well, going to be here with Frenzy, just a little bit of extra melee in that front line. And we do have a Arathi with her kit. So take a quick little look at that. Expecting to be bringing Soul Stealer and like, so we have the Wand of Karedan, a little bombardment spell with Soul Stealer, and then Power of Darkness, as well as a Pit of Shades. Actually, usually you're just going to be seeing the Soul Stealer for the most part, but Heartrender and the Dark Sword and Enchanting Beauty, so a lot of debuffs for that engagement, really to kind of a mobile engagement as well, kind of pick and choose where she does assist that. So we do have some Cold One Knights in the back as well, and some Cold One Dread Knights for the range or for the mobility, but we also have a pair of Scourge Runner Chariots. Very good units here, good at kind of dealing with enemy cav and just kind of providing some nice powerful missile fire for that support. So that's going to be the armies for today. So we'll take a look at, looks like everything is good to go. So they can start when ready. All right, so we are off to the races for this first match here, as the Dark Elves do start to slowly advance. So I think both sides are going to want to, because those Bolt Throwers should be able to do fairly well against these Hammer of the Witches. Should be able to do a bit of decent counter artillery fire, as it looks like the Amethyst Wizard's going to be getting targeted by that Wand of Caradon as the shot comes in, and a little overcast damage as well on that Spirit Leech. However, he does able to dodge that Wand of Caradon, but the fire from the cannons are starting to sing, and already we can see that they are just tearing apart these Ripper Bolt Throwers. They have already taken out 2 of the models so far, and that is actually, I'm pretty surprised at how accurate that's been for the shots so far. And these Bolt Throwers haven't even gotten off a single shot yet, as that Hammer of the Witches is singing true to its name, and it will be homing in on these final targets. Is now actually a switch target to the other Reaper Bolt Thrower, looking to kind of peel off as many of the models as can. And again, there goes another model. That's 3 already taken out before the Bolt Throwers even fired a single shot. The Death Hag taking shots from Marcus Wolfheart right now, doing some good damage so far. I mean, that's considerable damage, and he is racking up the value early on in this game. The Silver Bullets do open up into Morathi, and Morathi herself is taking a lot of damage in the early onset of this battle. So far, Empire is looking very strong with the build, and yeah, that Hammer of the Witch is doing so well in that counter artillery match so far, and Marcus Wolfheart doing a lot of damage, but he does have to be a little careful. He is out in front of the rest of his army, but he is just, oh man, he is just doing so much damage to that Death Hag this early on into the battle. And yeah, the Silver Bolts once again, yeah, doing some very good work keeping Morathi away from the rest of the engagement, and this is pretty much going to allow these Knights of the Blazing Sun to pretty much engage without those debuffs for this early onset. And Hammer of the Witches still only taking out 3. They haven't done anything recent, but the Wand of Caradon looks like to be dropping back. Actually, it's the Pit of Shades dropping in right into the middle of this Hammer of the Witches, and it might be enough to break the crew, though we will see. Usually you would expect to see that more in the like a cav engagement, particularly over there. But so far, Knights Blazing Sun doing very well, doing some nice charging straight through their own lines into these Bleak Swords. But these Witch Elves are getting dangerously close to getting into that back line, though at this point the back line has pretty much been compromised with that single Pit of Shades. So very nice cast there, able to break the crew of the Hammer of the Witches. So we just have a pair of handgunners still in the mix here. However, these Silver Bullets have gotten compromised a bit by these Dread Spears, and that Wand of Caradon that went down did some decent work as well. But so far, Empire is still sitting very, very nice in this early stages. Now these Witch Elves can rampage these Knights of the Blazing Sun who have just charged in if they take just a little bit more damage, and we do have the Cold One Dread Knights and these Cold One Knights here just waiting for that to happen to get the great charge in. But look at the shots raining in against these Scourge Runner Chariots, as this handgunner is just tearing them apart at this close range. Scourge Runner is definitely going to want to be sitting outside of their range, getting those shots in and staying away from all that focus fire, and just another volley at point blank range, or they're going to want to try and shut them down and get into a melee. Balance power still in the Empire's favor, though. Marcus Wolfheart, though, is kind of stuck in melee right now, not able to get the shots off that he needs, but this Amethyst Wizard is hunting for Morathi, trying to just Spirit Leech her all the way down, and the Death Hag is also very, very low, and that's going to be a problem, having both of their leadership characters taken out of the battle so early on. I mean, the Death Hag is still in combat right now, but it is only a matter of time before she does drop to just a single Spirit Leech, or even damage from those spearmen might be able to take her down. But Scourge Rider Chariot's doing good work here, able to shut down one of the handgunner units, but the Knights of Blazing Sun do get a nice charge in, though they are waving this up, but they do regain a bit of their leadership as they do start to win that engagement, giving them a little bit of leadership boost, but the Spearmen are coming in to pin them into place as best they can. However, the Scourge Rider Chariots aren't really the best at pinning in a full cav unit, and they should be able to pull out fairly well. Marcus Wolfhart has gotten freed up from these Dread Spears now, so he will once again be able to start firing in, probably looking to finish off this Death Hag now, but Marathi is still sitting in the rear. Looks like she did probably get a Soul Stealer off, as she did get a little bit of health, but a net does go down onto the Cold One Dread Knights, allowing these Knights of Blazing Sun to get a very nice charge in, as they do make quick work of these units, as that net does even catch in those Bleak Swords coming into that engagement. However, these Knights of Blazing Sun going to get a little pinned into place by these Bleak Swords, but things have actually kind of gone back a little bit closer to the middle, as the shots from these bolt throwers continue to get rain in from afar, as despite that early damage that they took from the from these Hammer the Witches, that the Pit of Shades by Marathi was able to allow them to continue firing for the rest of the match, and that is going to really help them come back. But look at the point-blank fire as that Scourge Rider Chariot tries to come in, but getting the last Samurai, and down it will go. So if we take a look at what both sides kind of have left, the Knights of Blazing Sun do have one model left, but I think the Dark Elves have a little bit of the advantage here with the Cold One Dread Knights and those Cold One Knights sitting a little bit better than usual. And, I mean, Marathi herself, while low on health right now, can very easily come back, but she is continually getting Spirit Leeched, though she does have those Soul Stealers, which can give her a nice bit of health back in this late stage, especially when all these units are depleted and is kind of forced into one kind of blob engagement, kind of centered around probably potentially these Knights of Blazing Sun and these Cold Ones. However, Marcus Wolfhart still has a fairly bit of ammo left, so he should be able to just kind of pluck away, doing some good damage. And it looks like we have Power of Darkness going down on these Cold Ones. It's a little bit stuttering here, but things should smooth out as things kind of get going. So it does cover the balance. So, okay, so the next battle we will adjust that slightly. I thought I did have that adjusted so it wouldn't do that. So we'll make sure that gets shifted over ever so slightly so you all can see that balance of power. And once again, another net has gone down, this time pinning in both of the Cold One Knights, but these Knights of Blazing Sun, I don't think they're going to be able to win this engagement even with that net in place. They're just kind of holding until the spear can come in, but that net's going to wear off before that can happen, and then the Cold One Knights should be able to break these Knights of the Blazing Sun, despite the fact that they have been rampaged. But will they be able to pull out in time before these Spearmen do come in and engage? And they should be able to, as those Knights of Blazing Sun do finally rout. Silver Bullets still do have some ammo left, but these Spearmen should turn around and try and push off those Spearmen, trying to free up those shots as quickly as they can. But both sides are very beat down in this late stage. Seeing how the bounce power is pretty much dead even at this point. I know that you guys can't exactly see that from the side there, but things looking decent on both sides. I mean, both sides have the tools to really finish off the other side, and I mean, we'll kind of see where things shake out. I think these Reaper Bolt Throwers just on the last legs of their ammunition. Great Swords trying to come in and clean up those far units, but by doing so, that leaves them kind of isolated right now, because these, actually just as I was going to say, these Cold One Knights should pull out and try and engage other units. They do get rampaged just then, and that may just put the nail in the coffin for those Cold One Dread Knights, as they are engaged with Spearmen right now, and as long as they are rampaged, they're just going to continually be in that inopportune engagement and allowing these Silver Bullets to continue to fire in, even though those Reaper Bolt Throwers are trying to pick off as many models as they can. The mobility for both sides now is pretty much shut down and is just down to a very depleted unit of Silver Bullets, but they have a ton of Spearmen. They still have some Great Swords left, and that's pretty much going to be able to deal with everything that the Dark Elves have left. I see Marathi is actually in this back corner by the looks of things, as she is trying to just kind of chase some units off but she is very low on health, and I think from the distance that she's at, Marcus Wolfhart should be able to finish her off with the shots that he has left, and especially with the Silver Bullets, like, she can't get very close, and she needs to be very, very careful. The only hope, I think, for the Dark Elves at this point is that their Cold One Knights do come back at this point, but I don't know if that's going to be the case, as both sides are so greatly depleted. So Marathi needs to stay outside of the range, but it looks like we do have a Pit of Shades late stage coming in. Can these Silver Bullets get out in time? They cannot, as they do get clipped here. And will it be enough to break them, though? That is kind of the key thing here, because it does do quite a bit of damage as they're down to 19, 17, and dropping for the models. And with that, Marathi does take that opportunity to charge in as they are unable to fire back during that. And now that she should be able to break these in melee, and there's not enough support in close enough to really take her on, though Marcus Wolfhard just a few shots left, and will it be enough to put her down? We shall see. So Marcus Wolfhard pulls back his bow one more time, and the shot does miss on that shot. And you see, because Marathi is sitting at just 388 health, and she is going to drop down on top of Marcus Wolfhard. A little interesting choice there, because the greatswords are all here. Balance power is now drastically in Empire's favor, and they will take that first match. So while we are sitting on this other side, we will move that scoreboard over slightly and down, so you'll be able to see that. And we should also have the update in the bracket, as Voidlalz did win his match, so we'll get that updated as well for our final match after this. And you'll go back to the match, kind of see how things did in this battle. So Marcus Wolfhard getting 3,000 damage value. Very, very well done. And even the Amethyst Wizard as well, racking up over 1,000 in value. And I think we're going to see that the Nice Blazing Sun, I mean, they didn't do all too well. I mean, it's decent damage, but they definitely didn't pay for themselves. Silver Bullets, again, doing quite well. Hammer of the Witches, again, got taken out by the Pit of Shades. Otherwise, was doing very, very well. But otherwise, it did allow these Bolt Throwers to kind of just get nice value over time. Again, not a whole lot. Again, Scourge Runner Chariots, as you'd expect, doing quite well indeed. Same with the other cavalry units. Racking up the value there, but otherwise not a whole lot. Definitely Marcus Wolfhard racking up the most in this battle. That is going to be our first match, and Talcor will take the first one. We'll update the scoreboard for that. All right. Alright, so everything looks good on that side. So we'll get to the next match setup, which we are going to go with, I believe, Excavation Site is what I had set up. Alright, so as a little recap of the first match, we'll kind of swing the comment section back. So Talcor did pick first. He went Empire, banned Skaven and Dawi in that first battle, and of course Ronan did counter with Dark Elves, and Talcor did come out on top. And now we'll swing down because we have Ronan's going to be going Wood Elves, banning Dawi and Lizardmen. And Ronan definitely going to be pleased with the new DLC units that have come out, because he is a Wood Elf main himself, so we should be in treat for quite a show as Ronan does try and get that battle back to even. And we'll see what Talcor does go with against the Wood Elves. Now, the Wood Elves definitely have a lot more tools with like Ariel and the other options, and having everything pretty much have the option to go Mass Vanguard with all of the tree units can definitely provide a bit more interesting tactics in these matchups. Welcome, Buttman, to the stream. You just missed the first match. We are in the second battle of the first series. Now, I'll take a look at the brackets for all of you guys to kind of recap. So this is Talcor versus Ronan for our first battle, and Voidlalz did just finish up his, so he will be facing Prussian Prince as soon as this series is done. So stay tuned for these continuing matches. So just waiting on Talcor to see which faction he decides to go with for this match, because we have Dawi and Lizardmen are both banned. Bretonia still can do quite well in this matchup. Jay Phoenix with the Mortis engine. All right. So this map is a little bit on the smaller side. It's not going to be as big to allow the Wood Elves to do kind of a full kite, but it's still a decent size with some avenues to kind of come, a little bit of forest ambush here and there. But otherwise, yeah, it isn't really at all too big. But Talcor is going to be going with Bretonia, the classic counter to this Wood Elf matchup. So it's definitely, in the past, has pretty much been a Eternal Guard with Waywatcher build for Wood Elves, but now that they have units such as Great Stag Knights, they can contend with the Bretonians in that battle, and as well as some interesting Lord picks here. I think King Lewin still may be the better for Bretonia, though for the Wood Elves, Orion can be good, though the Sisters do have a decent chance here, as they have that choice of shots, can really do some damage to the Bretonian cavalry and stuff like that. Devil doesn't want me encouraging Jay Phoenix with that. We shall see. But yeah, welcome Killerino as well. Definitely another supporter for Ronan here. And as I mentioned before, he did make it to the finals last season, so we'll see if he's able to continue that streak in this particular qualifier. Last time he did make it by beating Hadries in, I believe it was the second or third qualifier. Maybe it was the fourth one. But yeah, one of those he did make it in. Alright, so Talcor is ready to go. And yeah, we have actually seen this matchup. I believe it was played out in the in Turin's tournament the other day, where the Wood Elves were actually playing quite well. Actually, no, Bretonia was playing quite well, and the Wood Elves came back into it. So it's still a little tough for the Wood Elves to deal with, but they definitely do have some teeth to fight back. So we'll see how things are in that, because that one, it was the Sisters with a pair of the Hawk Riders, who did get a nice little buff too, because now they have 360 firing, and with the Sisters, it does pair nicely for some nice aerial firepower. So we'll see if we see something similar from Ronan, or if he's going to go a little bit more traditional. Ronan is ready as well, and Reed is still in the match, so we can get right on in to the second match of this first best of three. So yeah, Manbreed is, the other commentator is actually a Russian streamer. Well, I'll have to get his link after this battle, and then we can post that here in chat if you do want to watch him give Russian commentary for this matchup. Otherwise, you might be able to find him on YouTube otherwise. But otherwise, yeah, we will get the link for his channel right after this battle. All right, so we have everyone loading on in. So we'll go over Bretonia first, being led by Talcor, and we do have a front line of men-at-arms and spearmen at arms with a peasant bowman with pox arrows, fire arrows, and kind of a mix of those two. So we got 2 pox, 3 fire, lots of peasant bowmen. We don't have any peasant mobs, which is a little bit interesting. Normally you will almost always see that as they're excellent chaff units, and especially against the Wood Elves can really absorb a lot of just shots. As any shots not going towards their high value cavalry is shots wasted by the Wood Elves, so it's always a nice little bit of chaff to have. Otherwise, for the cavalry, we do have Knights of the Realm mix in with the Defenders of Fleur-de-Lis, Knights Errant ROR, and the Knights of the Lionhearted, the Knights of the Realm ROR, and some more Knights of the Realm to really just kind of contend that I guess cavalry battle, and all of which are more of a shot cavalry, so we don't have any of the like the questing knights, though the Defenders of Fleur-de-Lis are not as good on the charge bonus, but still not good units overall. We do have Alberic de Bordelot on horseback. Interesting, because I guess the Bretonians are knowing that the Wood Elves can really push a lot of good air units. I've decided to kind of stick to the ground here, as we do just have Albrecht on horseback, and he is going to be bringing the Wrath of Manan, kind of help get things kind of the front line kind of chewed down for Bretonnia, do some good damage to the Wood Elf infantry. And we do have a Damsel of Life going to be bringing Earthblood and Regrowth by the looks of things, as well as the, I believe that is the Power Stone. Ronan asking a quick little question, so we'll take a look. Yes. Just a little clarification on distancing. Otherwise, yeah, for the Wood Elf forces, we do have a front line, or yeah, front line. We do have Way Watchers, so looking for a bit more of the traditional side for Ronan, kind of expected, as he is pretty versed in that style play. That we do see a little bit of some new units here. We do have a Glade Lord, most likely going to be the Glady with the Arrows of Kurnus and the Prey of Anathrema, or actually just the Prey of Anathrema. So no Arrows of Kurnus. Actually. And for the rest of the forces, we do have a Spellsinger of Life, just bringing Earthblood. And we also have some War Dancers with Azrai Spears to help with that cav engagements as best they can. They will take quite a bit of damage from Bowmen, but we also do have Zotes with their Bound Earthblood. And that is definitely going to provide an assistance to the Wild Riders, who there are plenty of. So we have 3 Wild Riders, and yeah, that's pretty standard stuff for the Wood Elves. Not going too adventurous here for this matchup, but we will see how things shake out. Oops. So yep, they can now start when ready. So Bretonnia, seeing that the Wood Elves are kind of off to the side a little bit, they will kind of reorientate themselves, kind of push forward, trying to get close the distance to those Way Watchers as quickly as possible. And Way Watchers going to have to be a little conservative with their ammo, as always with these Wood Elves build, because they need to use their ammo on the kind of the high value targets. But they are just deleting these Peasant Bowmen with just a volley, and they may very well rout off after just one volley from all those Way Watchers. So they have stabilized their leadership as they did kind of pull back, able to dodge some of the incoming volley. But Ronan quickly switching targets between one and the other, and just doing a ton of damage to these Peasant Bowmen, who can do quite a bit to the kind of lightly armored, I guess all of the Wood Elves are fairly lightly armored, but now that the cavalry has gotten a little bit closer and in range of the Way Watchers, they will now just start targeting them instead, and Bretonnia trying to just close that distance as quickly as possible. And we do have some of the Spearmen-at-Arms and the Men-at-Arms moving up to kind of just screen out these Way Watchers as best they can. But these Wild Riders going to get a nice charge into an unbraced unit of Spearmen. And the Defenders of Fleur-de-Lis just a little too far away to provide a counter charge. So they are going to try and do so, though these Zotes are sitting in the tree line just waiting for them. And a nice Prey of Anathrema getting them right in before they get that charge. And though there isn't really any counter charge here, as these cavalry do kind of quickly come into the tree line here and pressure the Wood Elves out of that particular engagement. We have Albrecht here providing rally to the surrounding units, giving a nice little buff, and Rathmanon trying to catch out these War Dancers with Azrai Spears, though it is going to be a little too late, as it does clip. Yes, it does. Yeah, it does clip these Wild Riders just a bit, but not doing as much damage as the Bretonnians was initially hoping for. Now, listen, these engagements here, these Zotes are providing a very nice deterrent to any charge by all of these Knights of the Realm, as they pretty much just beat down those cavalry very, very effectively. Though we do have the Knights of the Realm engage with Wild Riders here, and trading rather effectively, might I add, while all of the Way Watchers are currently focused on the frontal engagements, firing in on these Defenders of Fleur-de-Lis, while these Peasant Bowmen are continuing to pepper in on all fronts, while the rest of the Bretonnian forces slowly do close the distance here, as they are pressuring this Wood Elf encampment. Zotes are going to try and assist these Wild Riders, so the Wild Riders have taken a considerable amount of damage from these two Knights of the Realms, and they will be routing off the field, and they are fairly close. It does look like they are a little confused on where they are going to route to, as they kind of route straight into their formation, and now finally do pull back. And as the Peasant Bowmen are now starting to just pepper in. The other Wild Riders are starting to waver as well, and that's going to provide these Bretonnians with quite a bit of, I guess, the advantage in the mobility department, though the Zotes are going to have to really have their work cut out for them trying to protect these Way Watchers, as the Bretonnian cavalry is really collapsing upon all these positions. However, the Bretonnians have lost 2 Knights of the Realm themselves, and the other units are getting beat down quite a bit, as the Prey of Anathrema does go down on these Knights of the Lionhearted, though no real focus fire shots were followed up upon. So the more shots continuing to rain in onto the Wood Elf formation, as the Alberic is starting to get surrounded by these Zotes, and the Zotes completely surrounding Alberic here and just starting to really beat him down. However, the Zotes are taking a bit of damage themselves, and as they are starting to slowly get whittled down by all of the focus fire from the surrounding peasant bowmen. Wild Riders have returned to this engagement here, though we have another Wrath of Manan looking to cut right on through these Way Watchers. Other Way Watchers trying as they can to dodge them. They do dodge for the most part, and a nice charge by the Knights of the Realm into the rear of these Way Watchers. And yeah, the Wood Elf formation just slowly getting kind of whittled down bit by bit. However, the bounce power is still dead even, and I think a lot of that has to come from the Zotes, and the Spellslinger Life still at full health right now, as is the Glade Lord, and Alberic still doing alright himself, and a lot of units kind of out on the periphery, though the Peasant Bowmen do have quite a bit of ammo left, and the Way Watchers continuing to get pushed back farther and farther as they get closer to the edge of the map. So just the rain of focus fire just absolutely blanketing the field of battle here from these peasant bowmen, as we still have one unit is compromised by these Eternal Guard, but there is still 3 units to free to fire, and there are still some actually in the back here that have been forgotten by Talcor that could provide a bit of extra firepower in these engagements, though the Damsel of Life starting to get a little low as the Glade Lord does try and focus her down, as is the shots from the Way Watchers, and that could provide critical for the Wood Elves in the late stages, as both Alberic and the Damsel of Life are getting very, very low and are very likely to rout here, as away goes the Damsel of Life, and Alberic is sure to follow shortly. So Way Watchers continuing to arc their fire out, now targeting these peasant bowmen, as just the massive fire from the peasants can really just do a number on the surrounding forces, and things looking pretty even still. The bounce power slightly in the Wood Elves' favor here, though there is no support for these Way Watchers, though the Cav for Bretonnia has pretty much been beaten down, as there's not a whole lot to really take advantage of this positioning by these Way Watchers, and the Zotes are just beating down all of the infantry here. These men-at-arms just taking so much damage from the Zotes. The Zotes slowly taking damage, especially from all the peasants. But things, and the Spellslinger Life is back. However, the Glade Lord quick to engage, as we'll see if that Glade Lord, but she does pull off. I'm not really sure why. There's not really a whole lot that can contend with her, and just another volley, I think, from this unit of Way Watchers will be enough to seal the deal on that Spellslinger, or the Damsel of Life. Yeah, things definitely looking fairly good for the Wood Elves. However, the Zotes do rout, and I guess that is the last of the heavy stopping power for the melee engagements, as the Way Watchers slowly get whittled down bit by bit, very low on ammo. This one only has a few shots left. This unit has a bit, but the Glade Lord shutting down these peasant bowmen, at least for the time being, while they're both kind of stuck in engagements, and the shots from the Way Watchers and the melee from the Glade Lord might just be enough to push them back, as they do, well, not routed, they do pull back though from Talcor, and otherwise, I mean, it's just down to like the range units at this point for the Wood Elves, though I think that might be enough, because the Bretonnians are just very, very low on morale at this point, and it's not going to take a whole lot to break what units are left. Now, the Spellslinger of Life is engaging in melee. However, the Eternal Guard engaged with the Men-at-Arms. Eternal Guard should win that in a one-on-one fight. And though Albrecht actually does come back, I was kind of surprised to see that, though so do the Zotes. But balance of power still more and more into the favor of the Wood Elves as time progresses more and more. The Eternal Guard trying to chase down the all these peasant bowmen, but there's still a lot of peasant bowmen, and with how spread out they are, they could actually kind of kite the Wood Elves at this point, as the War Dancers can continue to take damage. But yeah, just a scrappy back and forth battle. Way Watchers losing their ammo. That might just be enough for the Bretonnians to withstand, but again, it's like all of these peasants, they're so low on leadership, and I think that's what it's going to come down to, because I think in overall firepower, these Bretonnians, they have the firepower to whittle down the Wood Elves enough, as we do actually have a full health Spearman at arms with shields that must have been chasing off some units early on, as they do kind of continue to push back as these Eternal Guards starting to take some more fire, and these Way Watchers saving what ammo they can. A few shots are going to start raining into a full health unit of Spearmen. But we'll see if Bretonnian's leadership is enough to hold. Though I don't know if it will be, because the Glade Lord still has some ammo left. If we take a look at her, she has some, and that would be enough to finish off Albrecht if she does get those in range. So Albrecht needs to stay out of range of that Glade Lord. And Spearman at Arms backing up, trying to pull these Way Watchers out of position as best they can, just waste their ammo as the last of the ammo is fired from these Way Watchers, and are now going to have to commit to melee one way or the other, while the Glade Lord still does have ammo, and I think she is trying to push forward bit by bit to try and get in range of Albrecht, though Albrecht continuing to stay outside of her range, though he is kind of getting a little too close, and the shots can start to rain in from that Glade Lord and might just be enough to pick off Albrecht, as he does try and dodge. The shot does hit him in the rear, and it does cause him to rout after only one shot, and I think that is going to be it in terms of the leadership support, and I don't know if these peasants can do enough damage quickly before these Way Watchers shut down that distance. Zote's still been sitting on the back end of the map, though, just kind of waiting for things to kind of settle down, as the Glade Lord does finally engage in combat, as the balance, it just kind of slowly stutters here. So hopefully we can get things going. Just a little lag here in the late stages. And Bretonnians, yeah, they just don't have the damage output to finish off the incoming troops quickly enough before they can engage with melee. And now that the Way Watchers are engaged with all these peasants, they're just not going to be able to hold things off. And I think if these Zotes hadn't been on the field, that may have been another way for the Bretonnians to hold out, but they really didn't have enough damage output to deal with that. So yeah, just take a look at all of the kind of outcome. Actually, these were all rank 9 men-at-arms. I did not realize that at the onset, so that's quite actually a bit of gold going into that front line. Kind of an interesting choice, though, by Talcor, seeing that, I mean, they did get decent value, but I think if you take a look at the Wood Elves, especially like the Zotes getting 2k worth in value, even the War Dancers as well doing good work against the cavalry of the Bretonnians, and I think the Bretonnians having their cavalry just not perform as well as they could have wished for was kind of a crux for them. But otherwise, I mean, Way Watchers doing a lot of good work as well, pretty much paying for themselves, and then Way Watchers, or Eternal Guard, kind of just holding that line, not really expecting them to do as much. So yes, so about the forest. So Ronan asked about positioning to the white line at the start of that map, and the positioning, like the rule states, you have to stay. The distance it is given is 200 meters in the rules, and that is. It also says it's to be variant by how, depending on maps, and he was that far away by just checking the range on the Way Watchers. Now for the forest issue, that is... Yeah, when it comes to the forest there, it wasn't necessarily thick forest, but you could definitely make that argument for being in the forest. I do kind of hate how... I don't like having to do something like that. Brett, they were able to flank behind that the terrain there. They couldn't go... I mean, are you talking about like the backside here, where there's that forest there? Because they had enough space to go around on this bottom side and through the top side. So, one sec here. So the Weight Watch, well, as the map progressed and they got pushed back, then to an extent, yes, I would agree. Here, one sec, I'm going to get you the link. Here, I'll chat one sec with Talcor to see if he wants to contest that. Okay, so just waiting on a link for Manbreed's either Twitch or YouTube link, and we're just kind of talking about the technicality of the forest, because I mean, that's kind of one of the problems with some of these maps with the forest is the forest isn't like a thick forest cover, so it's like the entire area isn't considered forest. Yeah, and that's kind of a hard thing to go one way or the other on this, because we'd have to go into the map kind of separately to see just how thick that forest cover would be. It's because there's some maps like, for example, Tower of Hoeth, Plain of Spiders, where that would definitely be considered a forest problem there. And initial deployment was a bit outside and pulled him in, so I can. Yeah, it's. I mean, I'm waiting to see if Talcor. Okay, so Manbreed did send the link for his stream. So it looks like he's actually dual casting. So we have a Twitch and a... So... we'll post the links to... This is Manbreed's link here for... That's YouTube. And here's the Twitch one for Manbreed. So if you want to listen to the Russian commentary, then you can swing on over to that. Okay, so we're going to progress though. So the next map is going to be Eschen. So yeah, we're going to continue because Talcor is going to, he doesn't mind progressing for this. We'll definitely, that whole forest thing is hard to say one way or the other. I think that's going to have to be part of the map pooling. I'm just going to have to take a closer look at all the maps, as closely as I can, and try and do it try and avoid these problems as best as I can. But when you have some factions where their whole, persona has stuff to deal with the forest, and a lot of new units have gotten benefits to being in there, it's hard to kind of tell people that they can't use it completely. But yeah, there's definitely the Wild Riders, Glade Lord kind of cycling in and out, and Zotes as well. So that's we're going to continue on. So the next map is Sect, and which will mean Ronin has a pick 3. Which will mean Ronin. Oh. All right. Alright, so I'll make a note to remove that one from the map pool. So Ronin's going to be manning Bretonnia, picking Beastmen, Skaven, and Counts. So with Beastmen and Counts, it'll be more of a... And with Counts, you can only rush so fast, but it's more of a frontal engagement, where Skaven are going to have a lot more different ways to play the engagements. So depending on what Talcor is comfortable with, we could see a Skaven ban, providing Beastmen and Counts have a more of a similar playstyle. So you could provide a faction that allows for more diversity in that regards. All right. So just waiting on Talcor's picks here. And before we progress, I'm going to do a quick little save. of that last match. So actually now Talcor is going to be going Wood Elves, banning Beastmen. So I actually kind of feel that Wood Elves have the tools to deal with Beastmen, though I guess if Talcor is very familiar with that matchup, he may have other personal experiences with that. Though I know definitely against Counts, that's going to be very strong, so I'm guessing Ronin's going to be going Skaven here. Just showing how bad that Counts. Actually, no, Ronin is going Counts against Wood Elves. This is going to be a really interesting decision, I think, by Ronin with how the new changes to the Wood Elves have really made it hard for the Counts to guess one way or the other how the Wood Elves will be playing it, and then just continuing to I guess, choose which one they're going to go with and trying to build to counter that. Oh. Yep, I guess suppose I just realized that, but I mean, that's kind of up to Ronin there to realize that he'd already played Bretonnia. It's kind of just a little wasted on the van. And yeah, at this point, since Talcor's already gone with his pick, Ronin can't really switch out on that now because he knows that Talcor wants to go Wood Elves. So yeah, at this point, it's a little too late. If he would have realized that earlier on. But yeah, we can update the score as well. Forgot to do that. Just kind of make sure we don't have any messages waiting. Everything looks good. Okay, so yeah, and on this matchup with Wood Elves versus Counts, because Wood Elves can go heavy into either a treekin blob with Ariel or Durthu, but can also kite exceptionally well against the Counts. And the Counts having to decide which way to go, you can try for a middle ground, but that's going to leave it a little bit harder to deal with either extreme play style. So that's why I was kind of surprised seeing the Counts picked here. Though I think Skaven can also have problems with the Wood Elf matchup. But again, Ronin might just not be familiar with the Skaven playstyle and kind of going. But of course, he did pick Skaven, though. Sometimes you'll pick factions just as a deterrent. But yeah, we'll see what Ronin has up his sleeve then for this Counts matchup. Wood Elves, as I said before, can either go very heavy on the kite. I don't think Way Watchers are necessarily the way to go, even if you do go kite. Maybe bringing one or two, but not. I wouldn't go very heavy on that side, just because with Counts, there's not a whole lot of very high value stuff, though, unless you want to burst down a Lord very, very quickly. We'll see how things go. Because we did see, I don't know if this might have been in a recent King of the Hill, where we did see Ariel with, it was the Sisters of Twilight, and pretty much the Sisters and Ariel just kind of outlasted the Counts, where they just weren't able to really deal the final blow. And definitely I think Ariel is a little hard to kill. I think could potentially fit in either playstyle, though definitely more in the blobbing. All right, Ronan is set. And Talcor is ready as well. Alright, looks like both sides are now readied up. So we'll get right on into the final match of this series, and then we can get on over to Oppression Prince and Void Lulls for the next semi-final match. Yeah, so the other semi, Malverde, is Void Lulls and Oppression Prince. Alright, so both contestants are loaded on in. And so quite a different style here for the Wood Elves. Indeed, we have 4 Hawk Riders, all with 360 firing. We do have the Sisters of Twilight on their dragon, and if we take a look at what that they're going to be bringing, we have that Tenacity, which gives a bit of extra base weapon damage, armor piercing, as well as the Conjoined Destiny. So when they get low 20% health, they pretty much get a free overcasted regrowth on them. Now the problem with that is it does take 30 seconds to wind up, which is quite a bit of time, because when you do get down to 20%, you are quite low on health. You're getting below 1k in HP and just the normal breath attack. But the rest of the forces, we do have Eternal Guard. It looks like we have Dryads and Ariel as well, who is going to be bringing So she has Apotheosis, we have Tempest, we have Soul Stealer, Acorn of the Oak of Ages, which is a nice AoE at kind of explosion, and Berry Vine, which gives another bound regrowth that also restores perfect vigor. And we have some Wildwood Rangers and Dryads mixed into that tree line. So going to be using all of these mass Hawk Riders and the Sisters of Twilight as well. So Talcor is going to be asking about this, so we're going to have to do a quick little check on the costs there. So, because Ariel herself is going to be fairly expensive, so having her in there, so it's pretty much just the Hawk Riders. So if anyone's got the costs of the Hawk Riders, otherwise do a quick little, so as we verify this. So you can deploy, yeah, we're just going to check the whole 50% cost though. So I'll do a quick. So it's it's going to be very close. So we'll have to do a quick... Yeah, so 6,250 outside. Yeah, it's very close to that. I know sisters are around 2,200, depending on costs. Hawk Riders are 950. So technically, yes, he does have 50% outside of it. So, I mean, So this is in spectator view, so only I can see both. Unless they're stream sniping, which I'm going to, hopefully on good faith they are not. So otherwise, yeah, they can only see one side or the other. So now let's go over the Count's armies real quick. Okay, so they have gotten started, but for the Counts, we do have zombies in the front line and just kind of very wide with Crypt Ghouls as well as Graveguard, kind of anticipating maybe a bit more of the, I guess, tree box, trying to make sure that they can whittle things down, but they have a lot of chaff units and a lot of stuff that have shields that can kind of hopefully keep things at bay. So Vlad von Karstein is going to be the Lord, and the problem with Vlad here is there isn't really anything that can contend with the air in the slightest, so all these 4 Hawk Riders are pretty much going to have free reign to shoot at whatever they want. However, Vlad, I am expecting that he's going to have the Karstein Ring, which does give him a 66% ward save. Now, it isn't a one cast as it was before, as the Sisters of Twilight are going to be targeting the Varix Reavers right now, who do have regen. But Vlad von Karstein, if you take a look at the von Karstein Ring, is plus 66 damage resistance for 22 seconds and a 120-second recharge on that. And he also does have Wind of Death, kind of expecting there to be a kind of a potential box build, but he was taking pretty much 0 damage because he had the von Karstein Ring active, but now that that has worn off, he's going to have to try and close the distance as quickly as possible. He also has Raised Dead, Invocation, as well as Van Hels's Dance Macabre. For the mobility, we do have Black Knights, one with the Varix Reavers, and we do have a Corpse Cart with Balefire, trying to really shut down the regen of Ariel. And now he is trying to heal himself up, though pretty much the Counts at this point need to close that distance as quickly as possible to get into melee with the Wood Elves and try and survive. But I don't know if Vlad's going to be able to make it to the forest before the Wood Elves are able to kind of shut things down. So this is one of the reasons why you really do need some kind of air force for the Counts here. So the von Karstein Vampire Lord has that one. It's pretty much that air vortex, like it's essentially a bound tempest. So, and also bringing bats, potentially a Terrorgeist as well. Because when you bring nothing to contend the air for a faction that can bring very heavy air with the Sisters and the Hawk Riders, you're pretty much just setting yourself up for a situation just like this. Because if you bring at least some bats, you can at least delay Vlad from getting completely sniped out like this, because otherwise he just can't even close the distance before it's too late. So things definitely not looking so hot. As a Wind of Death, it does kind of slide on through, doing some decent damage to the Wildwood Rangers, though there's a lot of Winds of Magic to be going their way. And it does look like we've gotten a little frozen up here. I hope that wasn't a Nehek crash. Well, if it was Nehek, I wouldn't be able to do actually... Oh, okay, we are still going, but Ronan got dropped from that match. So we'll have to check on that quick. Yeah, the dropped isn't a quit there. So, I mean, if Ronan wants to replay that, we'll replay that with same armies. Because, yeah, that wasn't a concession. Because if it was Nehek, everyone would have crashed. The entire game would have dropped. Because with this, it was just a connection thing. So I'm just talking with Ronan and Telcor about this because it definitely seems like it was a connection thing because it pretty much got to a tempest or I was reading the chat at the same time. It got to a standstill and then the game dropped one of them to kind of clear things up. Okay, so Ronan has decided that he'll concede based on how the match was going at that point and kind of just how the builds were. So that means Telcor will take this as kind of an interesting best of three, with things a little messed up with the gaming and stuff. But otherwise, yes, this is going to be our first match done. We'll go over to the bracket. So Telcor is going to be advancing to the finals, and now we'll have Void Lulls and Prussian Prince for this next match. Okay, so Prussian and Void Lulls, if you're around, feel free to hop in, send a message on Discord to get you guys in here. Then we'll have to figure out where Void Lulls is. Yeah, I believe Rat Ogres was the fastest even before the DLC, and now they are drastically outsped by the Wolf Rats and the Brood Horrors. Doomwheel? Okay, so I guess Doomwheel was, I guess I don't play a whole lot of Skaven, so I'm not sure. So... Alright, so let's update the bracket for our next match. All right. Okay, so I guess guessing that wasn't void. Alright, so just waiting on Void Laws now. Hopefully you can get him in here pretty quick, and then we can get the next semi all up and running. Alright, well, let's see if I have Void Laws. Oh, there he is. Alright. Gonna need to add him for later. Alright, so for the first map, we're going to go with Galbaraz. And Void has first picks. Yep, yeah, Keykeeper. We were able to finally get him down, track him down. Oh, looks like Manbreed got dropped, so we'll have to get him back in as well before we start. So Void Laws is going to be going with Coast and banning High Elves and Dawi. So that does open up Empire to be picked, though there are some other methods of dealing with Coast. Especially now that they've gotten a little bit of a reduction in their, I guess, their firepower, where each of their, I guess, range units got a reduction in unit count. However, they did get buffs to their, pretty much their missile attack. So it's not necessarily a complete nerf, because they still have fairly similar damage outputs, though they will die quicker. Though they still did have a little bit of buff to HP per unit, though overall they still should go down quicker than they used to. So Prussian will be going with Empire. I have a expected counter to having Coast go first. Alright, Manbreed has rejoined, so... Alright, so for this Empire and Coast matchup, I guess I'm not necessarily familiar with this particular matchup. I do play a bit of Coast, but generally try and avoid the Empire matchup. I think with the reduction in damage output, because before the changes to the bombers in the last patch, before this DLC, kind of really pushed them to the forefront and allowed them to contend against the Empire a lot better than they usually used to. Because the cannons for the Empire, I think, generally trade better into the cannons of Coast. And I think that's something that a lot of the Coast matchups kind of wait. There we go. Okay, I thought Voidlaws just did a little switch out there, but I think with the Empire, because they can also go with like Huntsmen and really have that counter to bringing the big crabs that the Coast can bring here to kind of just provide a lot of heavily armored monsters, as well as the firepower that can trade decently into Coast stuff as well. And of course, you do have a lot of sources of fire damage. Pretty much any faction that can bring Lore of Fire can stand a decent chance against Coast one way or the other. Either with using Fireball to snipe out enemy artillery pieces, or Burning Head can just mow through a complete like formation of Coast that can just decimate a battle very, very quickly. I don't know about Aranessa necessarily in this matchup, because I mean Aranessa in herself is actually fairly decent, and I think against Empire it's possibly that she can be used because she does have that net, and when being able to shut down the fast movers of the Empire, considering that you don't have anything that's super cheap to get into the back line with Empire. You still like Empire Knights are still fairly costly for what you need them to do. So being able to take them out can be very, very nice. However, Aranessa just gets so overshadowed by Count Noctilus and Luther Harkin. They just provide so much added bonus because Aranessa can't be healed. She can rout. However, yeah, and she does have that net, which is very nice. And she is a smaller target than Noctilus on his Necrofex or Luther on his Terrorgeist. But yeah, we'll see which way Voidlaws does decide to go. Now, the problem is that giving the anti-large in an AoE, though, isn't really all too good against Empire because, I mean, most of the stuff you're going to deal with, you're going to have, like, Archer spam. I think you're not going to have a whole lot of good targets for that, and unless you're bringing like Depth Guard, for instance, where you want to give that extra bonus versus large or something that can bring a lot of large targets. Because I mean, I don't think Empire would probably go with like a Karl Franz or maybe Boris up on his Griffin. That would require you to need that. It would really be only needed against cavalry, and guns do a very good job of dealing with cavalry anyways. Because Coast doesn't really need anti-large with how much guns that they can bring. Yeah, I think the anti-large is I don't think it's an AoE unless she has a passive for that. Okay, so it looks like Prussian is ready. So is Voidlaws, and everyone is still in the lobby. So let's load on in. Yeah, that's the one problem with Coast is you have Luther and Harkon, which are just so strong as they are. You're really very rarely going to see either Aranessa or Silastra. Just neither one of those. They're good, but they're not like as at the same level as Luther and Noctilus. And Luther did get a reduction in ammo, though. Well, it's not necessarily that noticeable. There are some matchups where that can actually play a factor. I think the matchup with Chaos is one of them, where actually there's a good chance that you will run out of ammunition. Other ones, I think like Tomb Kings as well, is one where running out of ammunition is probably going to happen. And that can definitely play a factor in that late game, because anything that needs to clear out a bunch of chaff infantry, Luther just can't really do that in the late game if he's all that's left. Alright, hopefully we get everyone loaded in here pretty quick. I'm not sure exactly where Void Lulls is on the map, but could be playing a bit of a factor, because I think we've got pretty much connections almost all the way across the globe right now. So it could be playing the factor in how long this is taking. Last round didn't take that long to get loaded up, so hopefully everyone is able to get loaded in a reasonable time, and we'll see how the gameplay is, because we might have to end up dropping the spectator slot if it's too bad. There we go. Alright, well, everyone's loaded in. Hopefully gameplay still runs pretty smooth. So for the Empire build, we do have a front line of just Spearmen, Sigmar's Sons, always a pretty good pick in pretty much every matchup. More Spearmen with shields in the front line, and then we have 3 great cannons to just kind of counter skirmish and against the Queen Bess. So those cannons will do quite well indeed in that regard. We do have a Bright Wizard, who's going to be bringing Burning Head and Fireball, and we have Volkmar the Grim with the Grand Hammer of Sigmar, Grand Soulfire Bombardment, and Bound Banishment. So for the rest of the army, we do have some gun lines. We have the Archers for just kind of the Archer spams. Archers are just always pretty good against the undead. Low armored can just really help chew through either bombers, other handgun units. We do have the Silver Bullets as well to deal with kind of the larger targets, and we do have 3 Empire Knights as well. And I think I got all of the units there. So now we'll swing on over to what Coast has. And we do have double Scurvy Dogs to provide a little bit of mobility, help pressure that back line, and we do have some deck droppers with handguns. Now there's quite a bit of anti-air to an extent with the Silver Bullets and all the Archers, so they are going to have to be quite careful, but if they are able to survive to the late game, could provide quite a bit of extra support. We do have a Gunnery Wight, which will be giving ammo to Noctilus and Queen Bess, and we do also have double carronades on top of that. So these carronades are going to be posted up on top of the hill. Both sides are going to be able to fire in into one another. For the rest of the forces, though, we do have some handguns with a couple of bombers. So provide a little bit of extra chaff clearing with the bombers and some handguns to deal with the oncoming cavalry forces. Otherwise, there's going to be a box of polearms and a front of some just the regular deckhand mobs with actually the Tide of Skuld as well. Not a unit you'll typically see. Usually pretty much only see them if you have a little bit of extra funds to spend and you just don't have enough for another zombie unit. Otherwise, it's going to be very heavy with the firepower from the coast. Hopefully, Noctilus isn't going to be in the way of Queen Bess. Don't want him getting shot off the top of his Necrofex so early on. Otherwise, both sides look like they're ready to go. So, ready to start. So yeah, Blackthorn, we won't be seeing Luther, but we do have Noctilus. And Noctilus will do quite well against the Cav, though. That is one thing with him on his Necrofex. And Coast will be, at least temporarily, outranging the Empire forces with Queen Bess. And we'll see just how quickly these cannons can get into range. As you can see right now, they're just right on the edge of this zone here. While Queen Bess will be able to... Actually, doesn't look like Queen Bess will be able to start firing initially. We do have some sneaky little vanguard deployments of Scurvy Dogs, seeing if they're able to get things going. And things look like they're going pretty slow to start with. So we'll see if it clears up at all. Otherwise, we're going to have to try and figure things out. It's a little jerky here. It looks like it's running, well, it's kind of hit or miss right now. Hey, Rubber Duck, welcome to the stream. This is our second semi-final. Nope, Ronin just went out in the first semi-final to Talcor. Shots are starting to fire on both sides, though we may, hopefully no one ends up dropping due to the lag, and hopefully things kind of stabilize a bit. Otherwise, you might have to ask Manbreed to back out to kind of free up as much of the processing power as we can. Coast is going to slowly move up some of their infantry, though, just kind of leaving their Carronades and Queen Bess as far back as it can, though Queen Bess is getting a little far forward right now, and that's going to be putting the Queen Bess right in range of all the cannons. And at this point, all of those Carronades or the Great Cannons for the Empire can just turn and target Queen Bess, though I wonder if having Noctilus out front is trying to block shots for Queen Bess herself, which very well could be the option here, though the Great Cannon's already starting to lose some models, and Queen Bess is starting to fire into the Great Cannon crew themselves, and the Great Cannons could very well just end up routing from the shots from Queen Bess, and that could be the way that the Coast is going to try and deal with it, though Noctilus tanking some of the shots for Queen Bess, and I think that's exactly what he is trying to do, provide a little bit of a body blocker for the shots and allowing Queen Bess to just arc its shots all the way up and down the range. The Scurvy Dog play getting pushed off by the Empire Knights, though one of them have been able to catch these Empire crew over here as they quickly get surrounded, though, by these Spears and Empire Knights, so hopefully those Great Cannon crew will be able to come back, but the Scurvy Dogs doing quite a number on them, and they may actually be able to shatter those Great Cannons because they are undead, and they may stay in engagement for just long enough to completely take out this crew, which would be an excellent trade for the Coast forces right now. And the other crew does look like they're actually going to start routing as the crew does shatter, so that is a terrible loss for the Empire here, as all of their heavy range units is going to be going offline. So Queen Bess doing excellent work being able to rout them off, and now Queen Bess is going to be free to fire, so this is not looking so good for Prussian Prince. So I thought initially bringing 3 Great Cannons should be able to be enough to counter the Coast Artillery. However, the Coast Artillery has proven that it can trade exceptionally well, didn't even lose a single artillery piece, and able to completely take out the crew of all 3. And now that those Scurvy Dogs are just going to be in the back, they're just going to be able to make sure that those Great Cannons do not come back, as the Empire has completely abandoned that location and instead electing to move forward with all of the archers and the rest of the troops. But Queen Bess has done an excellent job of just almost routing off this unit of spearmen, doing 50% health to the Sigmar Sons. So Queen Bess is definitely racking up the damage. Prussian doesn't want to forget the Bright Wizard in the back, though, because those Scurvy Dogs could very easily just rout that Bright Wizard off before it's even able to come back, as all of the mobility is up front with the rest of the troops, so there is no support for that Bright Wizard. He does see the incoming threat, and since the Bright Wizard is on horseback, he should be able to at least pull back and survive. The Empire Knights should be able to counter those Scurvy Dogs very, very quickly, though those cannons are going to have a field day shooting into that blobbed up unit right there, as well as Queen Bess arcing in more shots as well, going down range, and really things not looking good at all for the Empire. The risk that Valkonos took here, taking all of that Queen Bess itself, has paid off quite well indeed. A banishment does go down into these handguns, but unable to break them enough to really take damage, as an invocation is cast to kind of counteract that banishment, enabling them to just continue firing away, as though the front line for the Vampire Coast is starting to crumble bit by bit, as this summon here just kind of sitting out in the fringes here, going to be disintegrating fairly quickly on. Scurvy Dog threat has been taken care of for the most part. They should be crumbling away pretty much into dust. We do have a Wraith Storm going to be dropping down on top of the Bright Wizard, as that Bright Wizard does come in and take quite a bit of damage there. And Count Noctilus continuing to do excellent work to those Empire Knights, and that Bright Wizard going in quite far forward, realizing, I think, that it's getting a little too close to the crossfire of these two bomber units and handguns to take a ton of damage, but a nice burning head arcing its way through these bombers, doing a lot of damage. So the Empire is now getting into the ranged units of the Vampire Coast. However, the key targets, though, is going to be the Carronades, Count Noctilus, and the Queen Bess. These handguns will do quite a bit of damage to Volkmar the Grim, but Volkmar, not really sure what he's trying to do here, engaging with Noctilus himself, as he is more of an anti-infantry character, and that's just allowing these handguns to fire in unabated, nothing to really contend it. The rest of the Empire forces kind of out on the periphery, these archers trying to deal with these bombers as quickly as they can. And the Coast so far doing an excellent job of just holding off the tide of the Empire for long enough to deal as much damage as they possibly can. But Spearmen across the board now starting to shut things down. Cannons still and Queen Bess all have a ton of ammo left, and these deckhand mobs, or the handguns, are doing an excellent job with the deck droppers, eliminating the sweepers in the back, because the archers just aren't going to be able to pressure them back here, allowing those Empire Knights to just take a ton of damage. And yeah, I don't think things are looking good at all for the Empire. Volkmar is not where he needs to be. He needs to be trying to deal with the rest of the ranged units. This cannon's going to be offline here. However, by doing so, that's going to allow Noctilus to kind of even turn and fire if he does want to. We have a Soulfire, looks like, can be coming down on the surrounding units, trying to deal with that Queen Bess, and not really doing as much damage, as he's just kind of slowly pushing Queen Bess back with his mass. The Spearmen finally getting onto these handguns in the rear here. We do have the forces of the polearms moving forward to kind of clear them up, though they are in guard boats, so they'll just continue to fire for a very long period of time. And Volkmar, while he does have his own replenishment, isn't going to be able to take that damage forever. We do have the Bright Wizard coming back after getting initially routed, trying to arc a fireball into these deck droppers with handguns, though I think that at this point the deck droppers should just be able to peel off and deal with that Bright Wizard very, very early on, though luckily these archers do come back, allowing them for a chance to really deter those deck droppers as best they can. And now Volkmar is where he needs to be, though he is getting just absolutely shot by Noctilus right in the face, though he is able to crumble away these polearms and deal, I think, the final blow to these handguns and get onto the crew of the Carronades. So the Empire may be able to come back here, as they have taken all of the artillery pieces out of commission, at least for the time being, though the summon of gunnery mobs is going to be able to potentially bring down Volkmar, and he still has quite a bit of healing left, and if he is able to get away and heal up, this may be enough for the Empire to really kind of come back. But I mean, you have the gunnery wight, which has a good sniping capabilities, and Count Noctilus himself looks like to be targeting. It looks like he's actually targeting the Empire Knights, who do charge into the summon, trying to shut them down to free up Volkmar for as best he can. So despite the fact that the Empire, I thought, were fairly at a very large disadvantage fairly early into the fight, have been able to kind of scrape their way back a little bit. Balance of power is kind of been holding at that point. There's still a way for them to come back if they're able to deal with the rest of the ranged troops, get rid of this gunnery wight, and deal the blows to Noctilus, because right now it's just down to these handguns. And with Volkmar kind of off into the periphery here, he is able to just continually to heal up bit by bit, but we do have the gunnery wight is targeting him down, trying to get as many shots off as he possibly can. We do have the Sigmar Sons trying to muck up Count Noctis for as long as they can, and since they are unbreakable, they do have 11 models left, so they should be able to hold out and just kind of keep Noctilus's attention away from the edge where Volkmar is. Archers able to push off these handguns, at least keep them at bay for as long as they possibly can. And now we have a full health spearman unit charging down the hill, gunning for Noctilus himself as balance power starts to creep back little by little, as we do have a Scab's Wraith from that Gunnery Wight, though, arcing its way straight on through these archers, but they are able to stabilize themselves instead of getting routed outright, and the Silver Bullets opening up onto the Gunnery Wight, and they have a ton of ammo left. That's more than enough to be able to deal the blow to Count Noctilus. And yeah, these Gunnery Wights, the deck droppers, do have a Invocation of the Heck being cast on them, trying to keep them up and operational for as long as possible. And you can see balance power keeps ticking its way closer and closer to even, as Kos has just kind of run out of steam at this point, and the more health that Volkmar gets back, the better off they're going to be. And this Gunnery Wight is just getting surrounded by units and by cavalry as he is slowly crumbling bit by bit. He does have a Wraith Storm, looks like it'll be coming in from Count Noctilus. Should do some good damage as all the units kind of try and scatter away, trying to avoid that incoming damage, as the Gunnery Wight will take a bit of damage, but the damage done to the cavalry there was more than worth it, as it does break some more of the spearman unit. Very, very nice indeed. And the Invocation trying to keep Noctilus as tanked up as he can, as he does get one of his summons off from the Necrofex, kind of providing him for a little bit of extra support, allowing those spearmen to kind of be keep him away from those, at least prevent him from taking as much damage as he can. But all these archers, we have the Silver Bullets just opening up right now, and he is doing quite well indeed. Now these handguns, or these deck droppers, trying to get their sights onto Volkmar the Grim, and I think the Empire at this point, they need to realize that that's kind of the bigger threat, at least to Volkmar, to keep him alive, though Count Noctilus has been able to pull out of this engagement right here, and he is going to try and get out of range of these archers if he can, though at least for the time being, he's gotten away from these spears and the Sigmar Sons. But down goes the Gunnery Wight, and one more threat to Volkmar has been dealt with, though he is at his healing cap, and the balance of power is actually in Empire's favor at this point. And these you have the Great Cannon crew are back, and they aren't on their artillery piece, and they could have been on their artillery piece for a long time. I don't think Prussian Prince even anticipated that they could possibly come back, because there were those scurvy dogs in that back line, and instead of going for them, they went for the Bright Wizard earlier on, and so they are back there, and they can get on to their artillery piece. But these deck droppers with handguns using up ammo, but I think the Empire knows that they don't have a whole lot of ammo left. Some of the archers do have some, but they need to deal with Count Noctilus, as now the last of his infantry support is gone, and they are all closing in. There are just so many units left for the Empire, and Volkmar wisely staying on the opposite side of Queen Bess, down away from the hill, so Count Noctilus can't actually shoot at him from where he is, and he's just continuing to take more and more damage. But these deck droppers with handguns, seeing that all the attention is focused on Noctilus right now, is going for Volkmar, though at this point I don't know if even taking out Volkmar is going to help, because there's just so many troops left for the Empire, even though despite the fact that the Queen Bess was able to fire for so long, they just took so much damage on that approach. They have so much ranged units left. They were all able to survive, and these archers, and especially the Silver Bullets. The Silver Bullets, I think, is the biggest thing that can take down Noctilus, especially in this late game, and he is just kind of running away while the deck droppers are trying to chase down Volkmar the Grim at this point, as shots are going to start raining in on top of Volkmar, allowing Noctilus continue to run away. But I think at this point, there's not really a whole lot that Noctilus can do. Even if Volkmar does go down, there's nothing that can really save him at this point. He probably is very, very low on Winds of Magic. He might have some left, and the cannon crew, they are on top of their cannon now, so they are able to just fire away. They're able to ban 2 of their pieces, and there's nothing that can stop that fire from coming in. So actually the Empire, they don't even need to focus on Noctilus really. They just need to get those cannons in range of Noctilus himself and just deal with the deck droppers, because if those deck droppers go down, then that is pretty much going to force Count Noctilus to engage himself, instead of just kind of slowly walking his way to the edge of the map. Grand Soulfire going down. I think Prussian Prince realizing that he was almost dead, was trying to actually catch these deck droppers in the act, but these archers are all out of ammo right now, and the cannon should be has more than enough ammo to deal with Noctilus himself. And I think the Empire, if they just kind of bring these archers and Silver Bullets over to finish off these handguns, but the handguns, they only have like 1 round of ammo left, and I don't even know if they're going to be able to finish off Volkmar, though he is at just 157, and he is still alive, 85 health, 1 more volley left, I think, for those deck droppers, and it's probably going to be enough to deal with him, though you see Noctilus slowly waddling his way, trying to allow those deck droppers to get as much value as possible, and down goes Volkmar, and away goes the ammunition of the deck droppers, and the deck droppers do now engage, chasing off these archers, and they will be able to chase them off, so they are going to be satisfying the attacking rules, so maybe the whole reason for Noctilus might be able to delay it long enough to keep these deck droppers at least engaged, or just allow them to do as much value as they can. And I mean, the cannons, they are so low on leadership, but they might be able to finish things off. I mean, Noctilus does need to, I mean, the archers do come back, deck droppers are chasing in, and Noctilus is running out of real estate here as he does finally reach the edge of the map, and that's going to allow the silver bullets to just open up, and that should be the final nail in the coffin. Cannons are targeting these deck droppers as they do go down, and finally, the coast units get dragged through the ground. That was just a long drawn-out battle. I mean, Noctilus getting 2,500 in value. Volkmar really did take quite a bit. He had to kind of avoid the shots as best he could, but man, that was such a long, drawn-out fight. Cannons barely doing any value here. Silver bullets, almost 2k. Very well done on that regard. And archers themselves getting 1,000 per pretty much. Very good work there. Queen Bess does, I don't think that even come quite close to paying for itself. I think Queen Bess is like 1,800. But man, that was such a long battle for our first one. But Prussian Prince will take it. And now we will be going into the next match. And we will be on Prague for that one. All right, let's update the score. Next map is set. All right, so let's see. So we will have Prussian Prince now has his picks. So we'll see what he goes with. Now that Coast is off the table for Voidlulls, he is going to be going Greenskins. So catching this one before Void makes his picks. I think a lot of people just kind of get pretty, when they are picking their factions, they, for me, like with Norska, I always ban Greenskins and Coast. Now you guys all know that. And yeah, just reflex banning the same 2 factions every time you play a faction. Not always realizing that they had just played. But it's going to be a Greenskin mirrored for this next match. This is going to be a fun, interesting... Well, hopefully we're going to be able to tell what's going on. It could be a green tide for sure, though. So when both sides have the same faction, neither side really has the advantage. I mean, against Greenskins, I always would have expected a Tomb King pick, though, because Tomb King does do quite well against Greenskins, but I guess we're going to be seeing 2 of the same factions duking it out. Yeah, Gork versus Mork. So this will be an interesting fight for sure. Yeah, definitely going to be interesting to see kind of which direction both sides go, or if we're going to end up seeing two of the very similar builds. But I think Prussian and Void Laws are going to have a little bit two different styles of play, so I don't think we're going to see the exact same type. So let's see. I don't think we're going to see a lot of Gabos Blackthorn. I think we're probably going to see Stone Trolls, probably Ragnarok Spiders, a bit of mobility, some Skirmish Cavs, some of those Forest Goblin Spider Riders. And then for Lords, that could go, I guess, multiple ways. We'll see. I don't know if Grimgore, though, is going to be the best pick for either side. Grimgore loses and Grimgore wins. Alright, so Void Lulls is ready. Just waiting on Prussian. Oh, shit. Alright. Alright, looks like Prussian is ready to go as well. So let's load on in. Alright. So I can hear all the orcs and the goblins screaming as everyone else loads on into the map. Let's see just how diverse these two builds are. Hopefully it'll be enough to kind of tell what's going on. Otherwise you might just see a smash of front lines, some WAVs being called, and may the best RNG win. So kind of expecting a little longer load in. Last time I think it got down to like, might have gotten down to about 150, so we got a little bit of time before both sides get fully loaded into this battle. Nope, a little bit quicker this time round. So, for the greenskins. So this side's going to be Prussian Prince, and we do have a River Troll Hag. We have Grom the Paunch, and a lot of mobility and skirmish. So we have Goblin Wolf Rider Archers, 3 of those, and we have 3 Forest Goblin Spider Riders, as well as the Swamp Things. So a little bit of terror on the field. Always good to have a bit of terror sources, especially in that late game. And then we just have Savage Orcs for the infantry, as well as the 8 Peak Loonies and a couple of goblins there to just provide a little bit of chaff. But yeah, the 8 Peaks, pretty good pick against really any faction. You're going to see them clearing through that front line very, very quickly. And for Void Lulls, we do have a lot of mobility on his side as well, and the front line's going to be Savage Orcs and Orc Boys with some Night Goblins mixed in, and we do have the Stone Trolls, the Swamp Things as well, so a little bit of terror as well for Void Lulls, and some more Stone Trolls. So 2 Stone Trolls, Swamp Things. We have a Black Orc Big Boss, giving that immune to psychology aura, and Grom the Paunch will be providing that aura for the Prussian Prince's side, and we do have Wurzag in the tree line here. And for him, we are going to be getting Brain Bursta. We do have Here We Go, and we have Effigy of the Git to kind of shut things down. But for the rest of the force, we do have Force Goblin Spider Riders, the melee variant. We have 3 of those, and then we do have 3 Force Goblin Spider Riders. So a lot of poison on Voidlaw's side in terms of the melee. So we'll see how the mobility fares on either side. It's pretty much just going to come down to, can they chase off the things that really matter? And will these Stone Trolls hold up enough against these Savage Orc Big Guns? And I think the problem with Prussian side is, can he deal with these Stone Trolls? And that's going to be, I think, the kind of the big thing for him. And we do have Grom, of course, has, it looks like, Language of the Boys. We have the Big Gun is here, and the Great Un is here, and Lucky Banner to provide a little bit of melee attack damage resistance. And the River Troll Hag does have Mither and Spirit Leech. So they don't have Assault to Stone anymore. So that's going to be a little less for the blob clearing, though we'll see how things kind of shake out. So both sides are ready, and away we shall go. So Prussian Prince taking the high ground to an extent with the rest of his infantry and the mobility. We do have a mix of Force Goblin Spider Riders and the Wolf Rider Archers on both sides. So a bit of poison on both flanks and a little bit of extra skirmish. Though both sides really aren't going to be able to clean up these Force Goblin Spider Riders. It's just going to be kind of poking back and forth, but neither side is really going to be able to win convincingly one way or the other. Unless they get a good kind of surround, because that's where these melee Force Goblin Spider Riders might come in to play here, is if they're able to get engaged with Prussian's skirmish cav. It might just be enough to really kind of turn that tide here, but otherwise, in the range perspective, Prussian Prince does have that advantage. So yeah, these Stone Trolls will just be able to stand and take those shots all day, and they will not be any closer to dying. I'm pretty sure they might even be able to heal through the damage that they're taking, because they're sure not going to be losing any models just from the skirmish forces of the Prussian Prince's greenskins here. Yeah, but so far, just kind of shots exchanging back and forth as the armies kind of slowly move up, but Prussian's going to be electing to kind of slowly kite his way back. He does have the ranged damage superiority to an extent, though he doesn't want to waste all of it, because the Force Goblin Spider Riders, they do want to keep that ammo as best they can, though if he does waste the ammo for Void Lulls on his Force Goblin Spider Riders, that may be worth it, because that'll be eliminating some of his poison sources in that late game and force those Force Goblin Spiders to be in melee if they want to be providing that poison. Otherwise, armies are going to slowly advance towards one another. Again, yeah, Prussian's just kind of slowly moving back, moving forward with some of his units while moving away with the rest. And actually, I'm not really sure where these goblins are going. Maybe just trying to pull these Savage Orcs away from them. We do have a Brain Burster going down in the back. They're not really doing a whole lot of damage. They're just clipping the back end of that unit. But here is the fight where the fight shall be decided, as everything are just going to be in combat right here. And we do have a nice little Fanatics going right on through here, just clipping through these Savage Orcs, doing a little bit of damage to the Orc Boys, but Here We Go is popped on Void Lul's side, and we have the Great Un is here providing leadership, base weapon damage, and melee attack. So it is just a mosh pit of all mosh pits here, as Orcs are fighting Orcs, and Stone Trolls against Stone Trolls, and we'll see how things go. Now, these Swamp things on Prussian side do need to be a little careful. Two of the Stone Trolls are starting to waver a bit on the Void Lul's side, while the Swamp Thing's still sitting pretty good right now. Having that terror in the late games will be very, very critical, so having Prussian losing his Swamp Things here could be fairly catastrophic, especially if this gets drawn out too far, and these Savage Orcs chasing off the Savage Orc Big Guns chasing off the Savage Orcs. So that was a very, very nice Brain Burster there, right in the middle of these lightly armored Savage Orcs, doing a ton of damage, but Wurzag is getting routed himself, and Grom the Paunch and the Prussian side should have the mobility to chase those things off, should be able to push back against the Force Goblin Spider Riders, though they are able to have some of them return to the fight. We'll see if I guess the important factor here is, does Wurzag, is he able to survive this attack? Well, the Goblin Big Boss is doing a decent amount of work, just able to stay in this engagement. All of the things that he is here to keep in the fight have now been routed off the field. So Wurzag is gone, the Stone Trolls are gone, some of them are going to be coming back, the Swamp Things are. However, that's in that time, that's going to be a lot of damage going the way for Prussian Prince, though he does have some of his units getting caught out right now, and losing any mobility right now is going to be very critical, because you need to chase things off against the Greenskins, especially the Trolls, because if they come back, they'll just continue to heal through all the damage they had taken early on. And Wurzag, unfortunately for Voidlaw's, routed the wrong way, and so Prussian Prince is going to have the mobility advantage on his side of the field to make sure that Wurzag does not come back, and he has more than enough tools to make sure that those Force Goblin Spider Riders don't come back either. Now, the Black Orc Big Boss does get Mither cast on top of him, and he is getting just absolutely struggled right now, and being brought down through the mud as everything just wails on him right now, and away goes that Black Orc Big Boss, and away goes the immune to psychology aura that he does provide. Now, we still have a very nice little consolidation, though, of Trolls in the back, and somehow these Stone Trolls do get routed off from these Savage Orc Big Guns, and more are on the way, and might be just enough to deal with these Stone Trolls, as both of the Stone Trolls are routed, and it's just the Swamp Things left in this fight. But Voidlaw, seeing that all of his stuff is being compromised, does concede, and Prussian Prince will take the match, and he will be advancing on into the finals. So he will take the series 2-0 and go to the bracket, and he will advance to face Talcor in the final. So take a look at all of the forces here. I think having the Savage Orc Big Guns against the regular Savage Orcs just allowed Prussian to just overwhelm. I mean, if you're looking at the kill counts alone, all these guys are getting plenty of kills, while all these Savage Orcs, they got like nothing. No value, no nothing. The 8 Peak Loonies, though, getting 1,200 for that one, 1,200, just the Fanatics. It just does so much damage, just clearing out all that infantry, and the Stone Trolls against the Swamp Thing just wasn't quite enough, as, yeah, the Prussian does take that fight. All right, so Talcor, you are up. So it looks like he has started up the game, so we'll get him an invite. No, he was able to see the lobby earlier, so should be able to join on in. Yeah, very interesting last matchup there. Just kind of a mosh of greenskins kind of coming together. Yep, a lot of gold in those Savage Big Guns, and that's where a lot of the Fanatics value came from. Is doing all that damage to a clumped up group of Savage Orc Big Guns, that's going to get you a lot of damage value there. But when both sides have it, that's kind of how it ends up being. So we have RTK versus VM in the finals. So we'll get the scoreboard updated as well for that. So now we have Talcor against Prussian Prince. All right. Right, for the map. Let's go with Karak Ungor. So this is a best of 5 final. Viking. Yep, and welcome to the stream just in time for the final. I think Prince picks first. Take a look at the overall. Yes, he was on top of the bracket. Yeah, we had some long, drawn-out battles in the first few series, and so yeah, just starting the best of 5 here. So we'll have Prussian Prince going greenskins. He's going to be banning Coast and Lizardmen, as was his standard picks in that last fight. So that does open up Tomb Kings, as I was saying before, as they do fairly decently against the greenskins. Alright, so let's see what Talcor decides to do for his pick. They're saying Tomb Kings can be a decent one. Otherwise, I mean, Empire I think trades fairly evenly with them, or you could go Dowie as well. There's definitely quite an open field for that. Yeah, and then of course, I mean, Skaven, I don't even know if there's many factions at this point where they don't do well against them. They don't do well against just because of all the tools that they have. But we will be seeing Empire from Talcor, so we'll see how well he's able to do with that. He did do fairly well against the Dark Elves again early on in the semifinals as Empire, so we'll see if he's able to do a similar performance against the Greenskins. I know Prussian Prince has played this matchup on both sides, so he should have a fairly good idea of how this matchup is going to be played. I mean, there are a few ways to take this thing. I think with Empire, Karl Franz isn't necessarily a bad pick here because he can really put the beat on any of the Greenskins lords. Yep, Skaven versus Skaven. That's the new Skaven counter where neither side wins that battle. Except for the ones in charge. Yeah, I mean, like, before, Coast used to be a problem for them, but now they have the Wolf Rats, which, while they don't win against Scurvy Dogs, they still provide a lot of mobility that the Skaven just didn't have that quick mobility. And yeah, with like VC, just more heavy hitters and the way to heal those heavy hitters and keep them alive and going, because that leadership problem is like less and less of an issue, because I think both Throt and the Packmaster have leadership buffs to some of the Molder units. They can just keep them going, so that leadership problem for the Skaven in that matchup isn't as bad as it used to be. It's still kind of probably the best way for counts to deal with that. Potentially Tomb Kings, I think, still do decently against Skaven. I haven't played that since the new DLC, so I haven't seen the changes firsthand yet. Yeah, the Chieftains, it's kind of interesting because it provides that +8 leadership map-wide when the Lord dies. And depending on what Lord you're using, that can be quite useful. There's, like, Throt, for example, usually isn't going to get sniped out fairly early on, so maybe you don't bring the Chieftain with him. But I mean, there's a few other, like potentially Snickich would be a good one to have the chieftain with to provide a little bit extra leadership if he kind of gets spirit leeched to death early on and something like that. Okay, so it looks like Talcor is ready. So we're just waiting on Prussian Prince then. We still have Van Breed in. I think, well, yeah, overall with Coast, like the Depth Guard got a nice buff. However, the rest, like, while the rest of the gun line lost models, they got more HP per entity and more armor piercing and missile damage. But I do think, yeah, Chaos, I wouldn't say dunks on Coast now, but they've definitely been doing a lot better. I think a lot of that has to come with the fact that Harkin doesn't have as much ammo as he used to, so he can't stay in the sky for as long as he was able to before. I definitely find that has been a problem where he's been unable to have enough ammunition to snipe out all the characters he needs to. But I think just the wall of lead has been reduced a bit, so time will tell to see if they've truly fallen from grace in that matchup or not. I have noticed that bombers haven't been as oppressive as they used to be. I don't think they had any changes to their damage output, but just having less models definitely hurts them quite a bit. Because you have to double check on their stats. Because they may have gotten updates to their damage as well. I just know that the missile units, despite the fact that they lost models, they gained missile damage and armor piercing values. So it was kind of a wash, I feel like. More chosen, yeah. Bring back the elite. Yeah, so it's yeah, buffs to bad or mediocre units. I wouldn't necessarily say. Oh, we're talking about chaos. Yeah. Yeah, I agree that Luther having less ammo definitely doesn't change him in most of them. But I think Chaos, Tomb Kings are two that it probably affects the most. Well, I mean, animated Hulks, I don't think we're still going to be seeing them. But Depth Guard actually probably will be seen a lot more. Well, I wouldn't say a lot more often, but more often. True, but if you're bringing Luther, you have to bring a vampire caster, and that's already quite a bit of value into just 2 units right there. So a Gunnery White isn't always very, because if you're just bringing him for extra ammo, I don't know if that's necessarily worth it. Yeah, the animated Hulks, I think they suffer from. I mean, it's been a long time since I've even bothered even looking at them, but I remember them having very low leadership in general, so they just wouldn't last long. They just start crumbling super early on. And then you have the Prometheans, which are just better at doing that same thing if you want a blocker. Alright, so Prussian should be ready here pretty soon. Unless I'm just missing him. Oh, there he is. Sorry, now Prussian Prince is ready to go. So now we can get underway with the finals. Alright, so for the Greenskin forces commanded by Prussian Prince, we have again a lot of mobility. We have Mortarchs, Mangy Marauders, some nice armor-piercing missile fire coming in from some skirmish cap, and of course Forest Goblin Spider Riders, and a couple of Goblin Wolf Rider Archers, and also a lot of mobility in the form of Orc Boar Boy Biggins, so very heavy on the mobility, as well as some Goblin Wolf Riders, just some regular variants, and then we have 3 Savage Orc Biggins and the 8 Peak Loonies for the kind of front line, with just a couple of goblins to provide some chaff. So mostly very, very heavy in the mobility department. We do have Skarsnik as well, armor piercing, anti-large, and poison. We do have a goblin knight shaman as well. Looks like we have a vindictive glare on him, as well as Gorkle Fix-It, reducing the speed and charge bonus of any target that they choose. And we have Brain Bursta from the Orc Shaman and Gaze of Mork. So a lot of tools to deal with any artillery that the Empire might bring. And we have Skarsnik with his Fermented Fungi. Now for the Empire forces, it looks like we do have Boris Todbringer, this time in the sky. So he's going to be on his Griffin. We'll take a look at his kit. He does have the Crush the Weak, so a round self. He has a -5 melee attack and melee defense debuff, and the White Cloak of Ulrich, giving a further -9 melee attack debuff to the surrounding units, and of course the Biddling Runefang, giving him a nice little bit of regeneration and Foe Seeker. For the front line, we do have just swordsmen and none of the Sigmar Sons, so just regular swordsmen, and that'll be backed up by archers. So a lot of ranged archers there against very low armored greenskins, and especially against the Prussian Prince has a bunch of Savage Orcs. They'll do actually very, very well. It doesn't need to have any handguns to do the job there. We have some spearmen, and then for mobility, we have Empire Knights in the rear going to be protecting that Great Cannon, and we do have a Bright Wizard going to be bringing Fireball and Burning Head. It looks like we also have the Blast Scroll as well to get a little bit of burst damage on top of that. I don't know if there's going to be that many very good targets for that. So without further ado, we are ready to go. So start when ready. All right, both sides have begun, and so the Empire, at least for the time being, are going to be able to sit back and fire with their great cannon. However, it's only going to be a matter of time, in my opinion, until those vindictive glares and gaze of Morks deal with that cannon. We'll see just how quickly or how much damage that great cannon is going to be able to get. I think at this point it's pretty much just to pull in the forces of the greenskins as best they can. So we're going to see just how well the very low armored greenskins do against this mass archer line. Should be just enough. However, it's going to be, I mean, they're just kind of setting themselves up for a, or actually is probably going to be almost more of a bait for the Bright Wizard, trying to get a nice little burning head to go right down the line and roast the entire infantry of the greenskins. The greenskins going to elect to just use their mobility in the early stages, so they're going to use the Goblin Wolf Rider archers and the like, trying to just kind of get things in. We'll see how well with that this goes. So you chaos lovers in chat still talking about the buffs to chaos. But yeah, I think the Fighting Champions, they did get a buff, but I believe Encourage, their ability, got a general debuff for all Encourage effects. But they may actually be a little bit useful, having just a little bit of leadership to provide. But otherwise, yeah, let's back to the battle at hand. We do have the Goblin Wolf Rider archers just kind of skirting through the tree line. I think allowing, just kind of poking away with what they can, and I think the greenskins are now just going to slowly advance, because I think they realize that if all these archers, they're just not going to be able to get any skirmishing value, even if they try and skirmish to try and bring in the Empire, because the Empire is just going to continue to fire away with their great cannon, and they are getting a little, well, not necessarily caught out, they are getting a lot of leadership debuffs, because Boris has kind of dropped down on top of these Force Goblin Spider Riders, and it's almost enough to break them, and with these Empire Knights, that could have been just enough to actually chase them off the field. So instead of actually killing them, the Empire Talcor is trying to rout them off the field. They did get terrified from Boris, but that great cannon continuing to fire in, but unable to really just kind of break their leadership completely. And we'll see how they work. All right, but otherwise, we still have quite a bit of forces scattered about for the greenskins. Slowly advancing, though, taking a bit of damage on the approach. The Savage Orc Biggins, focus of the fire, at least initially, but now the Great Cannons have switched their target to the Orc Shaman and also to Skarsnik and the Night Goblin Shaman and well. But Boris continuing just to get some free charges in to the infantry, though he is getting a little mucked up right now, though he is still able to pull out. I mean, it is goblins after all. Had he landed in the middle of these Savage Orcs, they may have been able to hold him in place, but with the recent changes to mass, it does look like he isn't having any problems in getting free of that engagement. So almost breaking those goblins, actually terrifying them, and a nice free charge by the Empire Knights right into the Savage Orc Biggins, though they have taken a bit of damage even off of that charge. I mean, Savage Orc Biggins have quite the damage output, though those charges are going to do quite well, and now the archers are opening up, doing a lot of damage on top of that. So far, no magic has really been used by the greenskins. They haven't really tried to snipe out any of the great cannons yet, just allowing their infantry to advance, and they are just beating down the swordsmen very, very quickly, and the Savage Orc Biggins just cycling in and out. So how the Empire Knights were initially, but it looks like we have a nice burning head, going to be going right through the Savage Orcs and clipping the 8-peak loonies as well, though not doing as much damage to them, but it is able to rout off the Savage Orc Biggins, though the Orc War boys are getting into that backline a bit, shutting down these archers for the time being and allowing the Savage Orcs to break through the swordsmen as quickly as they can, while the skirmishers are still continuing to just kind of pepper these Empire Knights as best they can, though Boris is isolated this Orc Shaman, able to get him routed off earlier on, and the Great Cannons as well doing a little bit of friendly fire there, but that Orc Shaman Shaman, I doubt that that Orc Shaman is going to be lasting much longer, though luckily that isn't the only amount of magic that the Greenskins have taken. They do have some damage magic to cast from the Night Goblin Shaman, though not going to be as good as before, as Gork will fix it, though, does go down on these Empire Knights, really slowing them down, allowing them to stay in combat, keeping them, dragging them down as best they can, allowing the Orc Barbarians to really cycle in and out of the engagements that they want. The Empire Knights are getting broken down. Bounce power still very, very even at this point, though the charges from both sides have done quite a number on the infantry, though these Orc boys in here are kind of getting a little mixed up in this center of all these Empire State troops, and might be able to keep them down, but a nice burning head just missed that cast, but they're able to roast the Savage Orc Biggins, doing a ton of damage early on to both units of Savage Orc Biggins, and it is continuing to going right through those Orc War boys, and continuing, might even clip this other unit of Savage Orc, but it does kind of phase out just before it gets over to there, but a lot of damage from that last burning head. Now, Boris is engaging in melee, trying to deal with the Night Goblin Shaman, but all of these Orc boys is just keeping Boris down, though in comes a mass of troops, as we do have, though, an overcasted, or just a casted Gork will fix it, slowing down everything here, keeping them kind of stationary. However, it doesn't change the fact that all of the mobility did get terrified out of there from Boris, and even that Night Goblin Shaman, though the Boris Tidebringer does get Fermented Fungi cast on him, though he isn't quite low enough to get Rampage there, though he does get minus 24 melee defense, though he is able to just kind of take off right at the right time, and was able to just avoid any of the damage there. Though it does look like we got a Vindictive Glare is going to be or a Gaze of Gork will go down from the Night Goblin Shaman. Does make good contact, but not a whole lot of damage going that way, as Boris does dive down onto that. The Great Cannons, though, finally getting shut down completely, being shattered, and a lot of the archers are getting compromised by just the massive mobility that the Greenskins have, and just everything is just so scattered out at this point. We have the Empire Knights just getting drawn this way and that. A nice Brain Burster going into the middle of these swordsmen and clipping a bit of these archers. So the archers have a little bit more spread out formation, not going to be taking as much damage as those swordsmen did. And Boris Tidebringer just picking his engagements one at a time, just dealing with that Night Goblin Shaman might be enough to completely shatter him with another hit or two. But that Night Goblin Shaman will slowly get out of that engagement, though there's plenty of Empire Knights around, might be able to just make sure he stays off the field for good, while the Orc Shaman is wavering himself, as he is kind of getting a little surrounded by some Empire Knights. And while Skarsnik's still doing fairly healthy, that Boris is going to be a tough nut for them to crack, with so much of their, their heavy hitters for the front line have been dealt with, as the Savage Orc Biggins trying to clean up as many of the infantry as can, but they are slowly getting dragged down bit by bit, and Boris has been doing a very good job so far of dealing with these characters for the Greenskins, and there is just so many things going on in this matchup right now, but there's still plenty of mobility left. A Vindictive Glare trying to clip as much Boris Tidebringer as he can, as Boris has pretty much been hopping between that Night Goblin and that Orc Shaman, though that Orc Shaman is just one more route away from shattering at this point. And finally, though Boris has been kind of isolated a bit, but these Orc Boy Biggins are going to be terrified themselves fairly shortly, and there it is, as their leadership does get a little too low. Another wad does go down, though, for the Greenskins, trying to keep their characters in battle as best they can. Well, the Orc Shaman does finally go down, as Boris continues to jump between character to character. Not a whole lot has been able to really counter him at this point, keep him down and deal damage. Skarsnik himself is just trying to keep things functioning as best he can. A Vindictive Glare making nice contact with Boris there, as he goes off to his next target, as in he comes, though they do have the Force Goblin Spider Riders maybe trying to get in with these Goblin Spears, but they're just not going to be enough to stop Boris at this point to save their Night Goblin Shaman. And I don't think that Shaman, well, we do have some Orc boys are going to be kind of trying to come back, peel off these units as quickly as they can, and it might just be long enough for that Night Goblin Shaman to come back. But I mean, at this point, what is Boris how is he going to get stopped at this point? There's nothing that can really shut him down. We have some skirmishers, but Boris has just had the pick of engagements from the get-go of this battle, and I mean, there's still plenty of Empire Knights left. Archers are coming back across the field, despite the fact that the balance of power is in the favor of the Greenskins, if ever so slightly. I'm just trying to think of how the Greenskins are going to be able to deal with Boris and what's left of the Empire Knights. Just kind of looking at what is left on both sides. As more of the Savage Orcs get shattered off the field, balance of power now dead even, though Skarsnik is holding quite a bit of that balance of power to himself. While we do have some of the Morgrav's Mangy Marauders, and we do have another unit of Goblin Wolf Riders kind of off in the distance, some tactical reserves waiting just for the right moment to strike. Though on the one side, Boris is reaching his healing cap, just with how long he's just been able to just kind of go in and out of engagements. He might be able to keep going, though every time that fermented fungi has been popped onto Boris that I've noticed so far, he hasn't been low enough in health to actually cause him to rampage just yet. And the terror that he has is going to be very, very helpful against the Greenskins, because, I mean, instantly these Forest Goblin Spider Riders get terrified as he charges in, and leaving Skarsnik pretty much all alone as all of his support just kind of scatters to the wind. We still have 7 AP Loonies left, so those Unbreakable units are all the bodyguard that he has left, as Boris just cleaning up all the low-hanging fruit across the field at this point. We do have some units coming back. I mean, Empire Knights can be charging down on top of them, as they're all going to be very exhausted. I mean, these Empire Knights are still fresh for how long they've just kind of been sitting and regaining their vigor. But yeah, I think at this point the Empire pretty much has it, because they have the mobility advantage now, and Boris is just going to be able to pick his engagements one at a time and dealing with each one as he sees fit. And just leaving Skarsnik for last once he has dealt with everything else. Yeah, Mangy Marauders are going to try and deal as much damage to Boris as they can. They will try and kite away as best that they can, while we do have some poison. Now, if these Forest Goblin Spider Riders were still around to fire in, it would potentially slow down Boris enough to keep these Morgrove Mangy Marauders at least ahead of him. So now that they are back, the tandem of the two might be able to kite him enough to just wear him down. And, I mean, none of the infantry is going to be able to deal with Skarsnik. So that, I mean, I guess it's still a little too close to call now that the Morgrove's Mangy Marauders, now that they have the mobility, they can probably finish off the Empire Knights, even both of them, I'm guessing, at this point, while Skarsnik just kind of bounces between, because the Empire Knights really don't have any good targets left. Skarsnik is anti-large character, so he can deal with those Empire Knights. So it's just going to be a question of I guess it's almost going to come down to RNG at this point, because Boris against Skarsnik, who's going to be able to deal the final blow, as I guess the tactical reserves finally coming back and dealing with the rest of the Empire troops, and they are going to be able to shatter, or not really shatter, they're routing off these Empire Knights, and these Empire Knights are going to be routing as well. And I mean, if they are able to shatter them, it's going to force Boris down onto the ground. And so, I mean, at this point, can Boris solo the rest of the Greenskin army? Because he's going to be getting poisoned from these Forest Goblin Spider Riders. And Morgoth's Mangy Marauders have armor piercing. But here is this final engagement as Boris is engaging with Skarsnik. And, I mean, Skarsnik, he should have a fermented fungi at this point. Now, Boris should be low enough to cause him to rampage. And he is just taking so many shots from these Morgrav's Mangy Marauders, as he's just trying to... as the troops kind of run away, kind of forcing him to stay with Skarsnik at this point. And yeah, Greenskins finally pull it back. I thought for sure that the Greenskins were in a kind of a tough place, because there's just so much of the infantry and cavalry left, but Boris eventually just getting dragged down by those Morgrav's Mangy Marauders, and Skarsnik soloing Boris so well when he's poisoned. Wow, that was another very long, drawn-out fight. Very well played on both sides. Yeah, I didn't think that the Greenskins would have enough to be able to cycle charge, because I didn't see that they had those tactical reserves in the wings. But Empire Knights doing decently. Cannon was able to fire for quite some time, and even though these Morgrav's Mangy Marauders came back in the late game, they still pulled off almost 900 damage from all the damage they did to Boris. And Boris himself, I'm surprised he actually didn't have more damage than that, because he just pretty much soloed both of the Night Goblin Shaman and Orc Shaman, not necessarily soloed, but did a lot of damage. That 2 Burning Heads from that Fire Wizard doing quite a bit of good work as well. Yes, the Dwarf Lords say hello. So let's take a update to that scorecard as Prussian Prince takes that first match in a very long, drawn-out Greenskin and Empire battle. All right, next map. Yeah, when met by a mammoth, you don't necessarily always want to hold your ground. Sometimes it's best to go a little farther away, even if you don't necessarily decide to do that yourself. Yep, Sea Fang and Pendulum are both going to hurt Norska a bit, but I still think, because of how long Sea Fang is, I still think it can provide some insane value. It's just not going to provide as much to like single units as it used to. VM's roasting Talcor for his performance. Yes, well, I know at least all of VM is pretty much all Russian, so imagine that he is as well. So it's got to be getting pretty late for him as well, and even for Prussian. So the longer these go, probably the better for Prussian, but both sides are probably going to be getting a little weary at this point. So Talcor's going Chaos, banning Lizardmen and Counts. So a little bit interesting pick here. So this is best of 5 man breed. And so yeah, it'll be kind of interesting to see how Chaos performs here. Yeah, because I mean Greenskins was a pretty good counter to Chaos. So having Prussian go that early on is going to help that. And Chaos has shown that they've done quite well in matchups that they were normally at a disadvantage in. So we'll see which way Prussian Prince is going to be going here. I'm going to assume he's not going to go with his High Elves in this one. Chaos do have quite a few good tools to deal with that and kind of force engagements that the High Elves otherwise wouldn't want to be taking. This does leave Coast open, though if previous tournaments in this last few days have shown, Chaos can definitely hold their own in that matchup. Oh, Prussian taking his sweet time, kind of thinking of the best counter here. But I mean, even Legionman is actually kind of an interesting ban for Chaos. Just due to... I guess it's kind of at a disadvantage a bit, but not necessarily the worst. But it does look like Prince is thinking to go with his beloved Bretonnia as he's looking through some builds. So I'm going to assume that Prince is going to be going with Bretonnia, although we'll... Yeah, you did hear my dogs are playing a little bit in the background. So you definitely did hear little doggos in the back. Though in truth, I'm just Norska, so yeah, maybe it is. We do have a little pack of skin wolves and Fimir kind of sitting in the living room. Hey, Salsika. Welcome. Just in time to see Talcor play Chaos. I think with the changes for the coast lineup, especially I think the bombers in particular, you're going to be seeing potentially, as Sicho was saying, where you're going to see a lot more depth guard. As I say, a lot. Just you can probably see them more often than before. But probably coast focusing a little bit heavier on the melee side versus how they used to. But it's still probably going to be a hell of a lot of guns. Because that Chaos doesn't really have a whole lot of good melee cavalry to deal with the questing knights, who that's what they want to be doing, is just kind of dragging enemy cavalry through the ground in melee. So they really don't have the best charge bonus, but they do very well in just sustained combat. Well, hopefully Talcor had already assumed that Prince was going Bretonnia, and he was already building that army. I think I guess for skirmishing javs, I was thinking of the Norskin javelins, but looks like Prussian is ready. So yeah, hopefully Talcor had already kind of decided that Prince was going with Bretonnia, and hopefully he shouldn't be too far behind, and then we can get going on our second match of the best of 5 finals. Yeah, Foot Squires against Chaos actually could be quite. And I'd expect at least a couple of them, but it depends on if Chaos is going to go with Chaos Warriors versus Marauders. Though it's also possible that Prussian could bring mounted yeoman archers, because they do outrange the Chaos skirmishing cav. So as long as you're able to stay outside that range, you're able to pretty much deal damage without really taking any in return. Though overall, the horse masters and stuff are probably a little bit on the better, but they can trade well into them if you are expecting to be kited. I would definitely make the Fae a lot more, I guess, you have to be a lot more cautious with her if you do have Sigvald. Though, of course, I think Archaon himself kind of provides a bit of that resistance as well, or a bit of that deterrent. And if you bring Sigvald, you have to bring another caster on top of that. Though, both sides are ready, so we'll see if they've taken any of the advice that we've said here, and we'll see how they go. All right, both sides loaded in right away. It's always nice to see. So for Bretonnia, we do have some field trebuchets. We have a pair of those, and we do have peasant mobs for a little bit of chaff front line, and we have the companions of Quenelles. We have a pair of triple other questing knights, so 4 total questing knights in total. Front line just peasant mobs and peasant bowmen with pox arrows. Just 3 of those and 2 of the regular variant. It looks like we have 2 paladins up in the sky, and I'm going to guess the Fey Enchantress, who is going to be bringing Earthblood and Shield of Thorns, and we have both of the paladins with their Guardian ability on. So definitely going to force the Chaos forces to engage, though the forces of Chaos have gone heavy in the Air Force. So those Paladins are going to have to be very, very careful, or they're going to have to commit to melee, as we have the Demon Spew Forsaken unit. Otherwise, we have Chaos Marauders and more Forsaken mixed in. So very quick front, or as quick as the Chaos can bring. So those Forsaken will do quite well at just chewing through the peasant mobs. I mean, pretty much the Marauders will do that just fine as well. And we have 2 Exalted Heroes up in the sky, as well as a Chaos Sorcerer Lord of Metal. And a Chaos Sorcerer Lord of Metal going to be bringing just Final Transmutation, looking to really nuke that questing knight blob as quickly as they can. We do have a couple of Marauder Horse Masters on that flank with some Chaos Warhounds with poison, and a couple more Horsemen and Horse Masters on the other. So yep, so 3 total Horse Masters, 1 Horseman because of cost, I'm guessing, and then 2 Warhounds. So very straightforward approach for Chaos. Pretty much just kind of get into that front line as quickly as possible, use those Forsaken to break through and get into that archer line before the questing knights and field trebuchets can do a number on them. So let's see just how quickly this goes. So start when ready. Alright, so match has begun, and the field trebuchets will quickly open up into this oncoming rush. Now, the only thing with the Forsaken here is they'll take probably quite a bit of damage from the peasant bowmen. So we'll see just how well they're able to sustain that rush. Now, the Feral or the Exalted Heroes on the Mana Cores are going to pretty much, I would imagine, counter these Paladins. So those Paladins are going to have to be quite careful, and yeah, especially anticipating those paladins on their Pegasus, I think Chaos definitely has the initial advantage there. These peasant mobs are probably, I mean, I wouldn't even be surprised if they break off of the initial charge, especially if you have these Exalted Heroes or the Chaos Sorcerer Lord close by to kind of just give a little bit of extra leadership debuff when that does happen. Field Trebuchets are opening up, though, and doing as much damage as they can into the Forsaken, trying to deal get as many kills as possible. I think it's only a matter of time before these fast movers do close the distance. I think the Questing Knights, they can't really hold back at this point. They need to be quick. They need to kind of clear out as much forces as they can. They can't allow that front line of Chaos to quickly engage, because they're going to break these peasant mobs very, very fast. And the Marauder Horse Masters can probably do fairly decently against the Questing Knights if they're able to kite them away for long enough. And the Paladins quickly trying to pull off on both sides to avoid the air goon squad at this point. And even the Fae needs to be careful, because they are hunting right now, and I think they are going straight for that Fae, who is kind of a little isolated, and she does need to kind of get moving before that Exalted Hero does finally jump on top of her. But the Questing Knights are going to be dropping down, getting some nice charges into the Marauders, but that Exalted Hero does finally engage with the Fae. But you do have the Questing Knights so close by, though they don't necessarily want to be blobbing up right now, because there is that final transmutation. I don't know if Prussian Prince has seen that or not, but he does need to be quite wary of that being cast, so he does need to try and keep things separate. But man, look how fast the Chaos forces have already broken that front line. There is nothing holding Chaos back from these peasant bowmen, as at this point the Paladin's going to be kind of soaring up in the sky, but that Chaos Sorcerer Lord is engaging with that Paladin and should be able to do quite well in that engagement. Now if the other Paladin were to kind of come in, but both of these Horsemen and Horse Masters able to get routed off by these Questing Knights, so things are not lost for Bretonnia, but things are also not looking so good, as they have the Exalted Heroes doing quite a bit of damage to these companions, and that Chaos Sorcerer Lord wasn't really able to do a whole lot to the other Paladin in the sky. But yeah, look at the Chaos just quickly getting on top of the Field Trebuchets. Questing Knights are going to be getting a decent little rear charge in. Might be enough to break at least one of these models, but bounce power is still in Bretonnia's favor, though the Fae just isn't going to be able to provide the or be around, I think, last long enough to provide the the damage that her AoE drain causes, though she still will help deal with what's left of the Forsaken, because the Forsaken have done their job very, very well so far, quickly breaking those the peasants bowmen and getting into the range unit. So it is just down to the cavalry of the Bretonnia, and can they deal with all of Chaos at this point, because the Fae and the Paladins are kind of grouping together right now, trying to deal with an Exalted Hero, as the Chaos Sorcerer Lord does pull out. So this Chaos Sorcerer Lord is very, very isolated right now, though none of the Questing Knights have the assistance of the pox arrows at this time, as some of the shots are going in, but most of them are just being pushed off the field very, very quickly. In comes the Chaos Marauders as well as the Demon Spew, and a brilliant breath attack right now going right in, but that may have hit the Exalted Hero a little bit more than it did hit the Questing Knights, so it is able to rout those peasant mobs, and I think those Questing Knights are going to be going very, very soon as well, though the Chaos Sorcerer diving in with both of the Paladins, both very close by. One of the Exalted Heroes has been shattered, and so both of those Paladins turn on this Chaos Sorcerer Lord. And that other Exalted Hero is very low as well, and I don't even know if he can drop in to support his Chaos Sorcerer Lord at this point, because both of these Paladins now, despite the fact that the Chaos pretty much brought the hard counters to deal with them, have been able to sustain that damage, and those Exalted Heroes have taken so much damage themselves from those Questing Knights, and even the Paladins being able to just pick their engagements at the right time, and in come another nice little charge, going to probably be able to break this Exalted Hero, as the Fae does come in, routing that one off and potentially shattering it. It'd be very, very close. It is kind of stuck in this melee fight right now, as these Questing Knights continuing to just kind of drag it down as best that they can, and both the Paladins going to be kind of pulling out, but there is that final transmutation. It is going to be hitting everything here. It is not the overcasted variant, but it is hitting both of the Paladins. It is hitting the Questing Knights and the Fae as well, doing a lot of damage, and a nice breath attack there, doing a lot of damage to this Paladin. Might be enough to rout it off, and with that charge, it should break it, and that's what he was trying to do, feign a charge, but he does drop in and finally does rout one of the Paladins. There is still the other Paladin left with its own Guardian, so Guardian is still active on that Fae, and so we'll see if, I mean, yeah, that the Chaos Sorcerer Lord is just going down so quickly, and with the Lord going down, there isn't anything left to deal with. Like, I mean, the Marauder Horse Masters just aren't going to be able to deal with the Paladin and the Fae. They have been able to deal with the Questing Knights fairly well, though there is still enough Peasant Bowmen in the surrounding area, and I mean, these Chaos Sorcerer Warhounds are just going to get drained down by the Fae if they do engage, and that is going to be army losses, and Bretonnia will take it. I thought for sure Bretonnia was going to be on the back, and they pretty much were on the back foot for that whole battle, but just those Exalted Heroes just weren't able to deal with the... I think, as Viking was saying, the Chaos Dragon just... not a good enough melee combatant, even with the 2 Exalted Heroes on their Manticores. And yeah, the Paladins, take a look at them, 1,500, 1,000. Fae didn't really do all that much damage, but yeah, the Paladins just dumpstered these Exalted Heroes, and yeah, the Exalted Heroes just did not perform very well. And even the Forsaken, they didn't do a whole lot of damage, but the whole point of them was that some of them actually did, but they needed to break that front line very quickly, and that is exactly what they did. Got into the back line, shut down the trebuchets, shut down all of the range units as quickly as they can. I mean, so few kills on all of these peasant mobs. So it was pretty much all the heavy lifting was done by the Questing Knights, and they did quite well for themselves. But a very good second match, and Prussian Prince will take the lead at 2-0. So now we are going into a match game, the match set here. So we'll see if Prussian can go 3-0, or is Talcor going to be able to come back as they update the score and get the map updated as well. We just did a desert map. We'll go with Desert Bounty is a good even map, so we'll stick with that. Some very good matches in this final so far, as both matches have been kind of really a hit or miss on both sides, as they've really been very close matches. Chaos almost able to be quick enough to push Bretonnia back, but they just were able to sustain with the Paladin and the Fae. Just too much for Chaos to finish off in the end. A very, very good match. And we'll see how the final, or potentially the final match, ends up being, as Prince will have his picks. Alright, well, Prince just waiting on his picks here. We'll take a look at the bracket for those who are either just joining us or haven't really seen some of the earlier matches. So the first series we had was Talcor versus Ronin. Talcor took that 2-1, and then Prussian Prince beat Void Lulls in the second semifinal 2-0. And now we are sitting in the finals right now. Prussian Prince leads Talcor 2-0, going into the third of a best of 5. Yeah, I would expect, because we've had Chaos and Empire have been the other two picks. So, yeah, I imagine it is pretty late for Talco. So, Prince is going to be going High Elves, banning Greenskins and Bretonia. Yep, unfortunately for Talcor, we've had some pretty long matches today, and so it's getting quite late for him, and even Prince, I imagine it's starting to get fairly late as well. Yeah, I don't recall what Prince banned for that first match. Oh, because he went Greenskins and he banned Coast and Lizardmen. That's right, his standard bans for that matchup, or for his pick. So Talcor will be going Lizardmen into Prince's High Elves. So we'll see how that matchup goes. I think Lizardmen, I want to say Lizardmen generally have the advantage in this particular one, but I'm sure Prince has practiced this matchup quite a few times. So hopefully he has a pretty good idea of what he's doing. Talcor, yeah, he should be. I don't know what his factions are, so I'm not sure how well versed he is in Lizardmen. We'll see just how, I guess, how much longer this will end up being. I mean, if Talcor is able to win this one and the next one, we could be sitting around for quite some time. We're already reaching the 3-hour mark of the stream. Prussian is ready, so see if Talcor will be short behind. Let's see, for these matchups, and I've seen Lizardmen kind of go with a Solar Engine and a Temple Guard kind of box formation for the most part. It's not really like a true box that I've seen, but I think Solar Engine's probably a fairly likely pick here. I think High Elves can counter that to an extent with Bolt Throwers. I'm not sure if that's really going to be how quick. I mean, they won't be able to deal the job quickly enough. We'll see, yeah, just see how things kind of shake out with this, because they're not very really well versed in this particular matchup. So we'll see just what both sides have brought to the table. Well, yeah, the Sisters of Avalorn will have some very nice targets to deal with the big dinos. And I mean, other than them, I mean, you could potentially, like, what else can the High Elves bring that can deal with like large monsters? So you do have them. You have Silverin, will do decent work, but I think like with Silverin, the Saurus front line will beat them. So that's kind of where you get a bit of a problem because one of your best tools is usually countered by their front line, and Temple Guard pretty much limits you from using, like, for example, like a Star Dragon. I think would struggle a bit versus Lizardmen. I guess from my unpracticed experience in this matchup. A Metal Caster with Plague or Rust, I think, wouldn't be bad just with archers, because that would allow you to. I mean, that's kind of how like Norska deals with the Lizardmen large targets. Is you use Plague or Rust, and then you just pepper them with javelin fire, and you bring them down very quickly that way. For in a similar concept with High Elves, and then I mean High Elves do that to other large characters as well, because you just bring a bunch of archers, Plague of Rust, and then you just nuke them down. You can even net them with Teclis, for example. Telcor's ready, so we are getting right on into this third match. All right, both sides instantly loaded on in. So we do have a Star Dragon for Prussian Prince, and we do have, it looks like, a Lariel on her Eagle. So for the rest of the troops, we do have a pair of Dragon Princes, some White Lions of Trace, and Spearmen for the front line, as well as a pair of Eagle Claw Bolt Throwers. So not going any ranged other than the artillery, and just going to allow these White Lions to try and deal with that frontal engagement. So Lariel going to be bringing Earthblood, Shield of Thorns, as well as the Star of Avalorn, as pretty much to be expected. Now for the Lizardmen, we do have a frontline just Saurus Spears, as well as Temple Guard, as well as the Star Chamber Guardian. So triple Temple Guard, very elite front line. We have some Skink Cohort and some Saurus Spears with a Solar Engine. Two of them, two Bastiladons with solar engines, and we do have a Slann Mage Priest of Life with a pair of Saurus Scarvets on foot. So they will provide a bit of extra support and a little bit of protection for that Slann Mage Priest. And we do have Sacred Kroxigors as well. So we have one unit of those. So pretty heavy hitters for the Lizardmen, as only 500 units, so pretty elite on both sides. We'll see just which side is able to kind of capitalize on that. I think the Dragon Princes are going to have a hard time getting onto the targets they want, because you have Sacred Kroxigors and you have Temple Guard all across the field, so it's going to be really hard for them to get onto good targets to deal the damage that they need to, and the Bastiladons are going to have quite a field day on them. So let's just see how things go as both sides ready up. So Prince going for a bit more of a spread out build. I think, well, the Temple Guard box is kind of going to have to be a little bit tighter, especially with the Dragon Princes on the other side. They're just going to want to be able to be in a position to counter the charges as best they can, really just deter those Dragon Princes from getting the value that they need. We also have the Star Dragon, which again isn't going to have a whole lot of good targets, because these Sacred Kroxigors can do an excellent job at keeping that Star Dragon down and just keep it in with all their mass, and then allow the Temple Guard to collapse on top of them. And until that happens, you do have these two Bastiladons just being able to kind of fire in at whatever target they choose to at this point. Now, we don't have the Fireborn, so it is just the regular Dragon Princes, so they don't have the fire resistance that the Fireborn do have, though they do have a decent amount. As we take a quick little look at what they have. So they do have, actually no, they do have the same. So a 70% fire resistance for all the Dragon Princes, while these do fire damage for the ammunition. So that will help with those shots at least. But both frontline engagements aren't going to be getting underway. So the Lizardmen electing to just kind of charge forward right now, and even Alariel coming in with both of these Star Dragons coming in, getting some decent charges. I'm not really taking any damage from that charge on the Temple Guard, and the Star Dragon itself is also coming in, dealing with these Sara Spears as quickly as they can, and these other Skink cohort trying to kind of get in the back line, but they are just going to get absolutely sandwiched in the back. Though we do have a banishment going down in the back, catching these Spearmen, these White Lions able to dodge out of that, and otherwise just kind of going through both of the Saurus and the Spearmen, and I think the High Elves will take that trade there, letting those Spearmen take some damage. They're not really that expensive of a unit, but in this, I guess not really the back line, but as far back as the High Elves can go, the White Lions are now engaged with both of the Sara Scarvet as well as the Star Chamber Guardians. Sacred Croxor is getting mixed into this, and the Shield of the Old Ones goes down, and a Star Breath goes onto the Sara Scarvet, though it does seem like I got out of the way a bit, and with the shield able to tank some of that damage a little better. But both of the Bastiladons, or at least one of the Bastiladons, able to just kind of fire freely at this point, as the Eagle Claw Bolt Throwers have taken some damage as the shots continue to rain in, dropping artillery models one at a time with their shots. But so far, balance is still very even. The Star Chamber Guardian and the other Temple Guard holding firm against the onslaught, as these Eagle Claw Bolt Throwers slowly getting picked off one by one. Only 2 models left, but now these Dragon Princes are in the back line, and there's nothing that can really keep them away from these Bastiladons. So the Bastiladons are no slouches in melee, and the Temple Guard trying to get on top of them, while the other Bastiladon kind of a little unsure of what it's doing right now. It's still taking some shots from the Reaper Bolt Throwers, but not a whole lot left, and in comes the Star Dragon with Alariel, trying to probably eliminate the range threat, as this one is pretty deep down, and this Bastiladon just taking no damage from those Dragon Princes. Now the Star Dragon with Alariel should be able to deal with this Bastiladon. Prussian Prince has to be a little cautious against these Temple Guard, because they are just kind of surrounding, and it is taking shots from that Bastiladon, who, despite being in melee, is in guard mode, so is still able to fire away. And it looks like we do have a Cold-Blooded on top of this Bastiladon, trying to keep it in the fight, and a Shield of Thorns goes down on the Star Dragon to allow it to stay in melee for as long as it can, and Sacred Croxor is just getting a ton of value out of them, just dealing with these White Lions quite effectively. A little bit surprised the White Lions, you'd think, could cut through that a little bit quicker, but yeah, those Sacred Croxor is doing quite good work. However, they are mixed in with Spearmen at this point in the rear, and the Star Dragon did take a bit of damage, so there are Stars of Avalorn in play here, so it's only a matter of time before we see one or the first one cast, as the Sacred Croxor is now coming in to assist the Star Chamber Guardians and Temple Guard, trying to get into these White Lions and rout them off the field with the assistance of the Sara Scarvet. And the Salon Mage Priest does cast Shield of the Old Ones, providing the protection to pretty much all of the remaining troops at this point. Well, this blob of, I guess they do have some more troops over here, the Temple Guard and the Star Spears able to sandwich these Spearmen, while the Dragon Princes are trying to cycle charge them as much as they can. Another banishment going into the back line, clipping these White Lions. But otherwise, yeah, this little engagement here going very well for the Lizardmen. Balance power is in their favor, as neither of the Bastiladons have been able to get shut down just yet, though these Dragon Princes and this Star Dragon are pretty much going to have to hard carry at this point, so even the Eagle Claw Boat Throwers are still firing away. The 2 of them might be enough to deal with this one unit for Bastiladon, but the other one is just going to probably survive until very late stages of this match. One does finally rout, and there should be plenty of mobility with these Dragon Princes to, if Oppression does choose to, can go in and make sure that that is escorted off. Yeah, now at this point, I mean, High Elves, they can pretty much just kind of move back at this point, though I mean, that Bastiladon, it's only going to take, it could only take 2 shots, and that's all it's going to take to deal with these Eagle Claw Bolt Throwers. The other one does come back, so potentially, Lizardmen, it wouldn't necessarily be a bad idea to make sure those Eagle Claw Bolt Throwers are eliminated, even if there's other maybe more ideal targets to be shooting at. If by eliminating they're only ranged, it can be a very valuable in that late game, making sure that the High Elves need to move forward and commit to that melee, while otherwise they can just kind of sit back, let those bolt throwers fire in, and just pick off as many units as possible in the meantime. So we'll see which way Talcor does decide to kind of go with that. Decent little charge here, though it could be a little bit of a misplay, as those Temple Guard are very close, but they are able to, these Dragon Princes are able to pull out in the nick of time before those Star Chambers were able to sandwich them in. And this Star Dragon with Alarielle deciding to dive into this engagement. And a shot from the Bastildon does miss, and in come the Boxagors with their big old fists looking to get some damage done. But as they do approach, the rest of the High Elves will kind of try and pull out, allowing their spearmen to take whatever damage they can before they in turn eventually get peeled off and rout, because it's only a matter of time for them. We do have one spearman back, and this unit actually does get rout off. Only 2 units left to man the Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower, and the last one is getting fired upon, but it has used up almost all of its ammo. Only maybe a couple of shots left. Take a quick little look. 4 shots left, but still also very low on ammo. So at this point, not really a threat for the range units, though there's still so much anti-large for the Lizardmen, and I don't think that the High Elves just have what it takes to deal with it, because, I mean, the Dragon Princes can cycle charge in. They're fairly healthy, though, I mean, against Temple Guard, we're going to see just how well they do. Only a shot or 2 left. One more shot left on the Bastildon, as the Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower crew loses its model here, but is still able to reman the other unit and use up the last of its ammo. And I think that the Bastildon is waiting in that breath attack, unfortunately going for that Slann. The Slann is able to go underneath that Star Dragon and dodge the shot. And the Lizardmen, seeing that Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower crew is almost back on its unit, is going to start to move forward ever so slowly into that position to try and shut it down. But by doing so, they have kind of separated themselves a little bit, allowing these Dragon Princes to get a nice charge in, and that Star Dragon is getting some damage done onto the Slann. However, the Bastildon, the Boxagors, and the rest of the Temple Guard are all kind of sandwiching in. This is a decent little blob, and it's only a matter of time before I think we see the Star of Averlorn try and heal up all of these very expensive units, because there's still quite a bit of funds left on the field for the High Elves. So Alarielle's getting a little caught out here, so she is able to pull out of that battle just as that Star Dragon's kind of circling her head. Should have one more breath attack left, I believe. But in the meantime, just going to allow that Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower to get whatever shots left it can. So it does have 4 shots. It's just going to be plucking away, trying to kill as many units as it can, probably targeting these Boxagors at this point. And Alarielle committing to melee, and there is that breath attack. Just kind of hitting infantry at that point, I think missing that Bastillodon. But at this point, it is going to be down to the Dragon Princes, and can that Star Dragon live long enough to pretty much deal with the Slann? And here is that Star of Averlorn healing up the Star Dragon and Alarielle, though it isn't catching this unit of Dragon Princes. It is going to catch one of them as they get healed up, with Shield of Thorns is also popped on them, keeping them all a nice little bit of resistance with 22% physical resist, though the Star Chamber Guardians do magic damage, so they will be able to keep them pierce through that physical resist. So Star Dragon, just look how much damage it has taken, even with that Star of Averlorn on top of it. It just took so much damage from those Star Chamber and the rest of the Lizardman forces, though the bounce power ever so much in the favor of the Lizardman. Star Dragon trying to goon out this Sora Scarvet, which is a little bit isolated, though the rest of the Lizardman forces are just beating down these Dragon Princes very, very effectively, as bounce power starts to edge back into the Lizardman's favor, though it is pretty much even at this point. There is another Star of Averlorn, but it is going to be a little bit of time before Alarielle can cast that once again. But things are slowly getting peeled off. There goes the Scarvet. The other Scarvet still very, very healthy. These Sacred Proxigors, though, are getting a little low. They were rampaged, and the Star Dragon, I think, is trying to dive on top of them to break them, as they are exhausted. They are getting very low on leadership, but they are not gone just yet, as the Star Chamber and the rest of the Temple Guard collapsing upon the Star Dragon once again, and Alarielle just kind of mixed into this mosh pit of monsters and Temple Guard. And I think things are looking fairly decently for the Lizardmen, as that Star Dragon is going to rout. The Dragon Princes are starting to come back, but yeah, it's just going to be too little too late. There's not enough time left to get the heals off that the High Elves need to come back, and the Lizardmen are going to be able to drag this out. Just too much anti-large for the High Elves to deal with. All of those Temple Guard, just not enough to crack through it. Though it's potentially it's not over yet, though I don't think the Star Dragon coming back is going to affect things. It's a little too late for that, as Alarielle wavering herself. And with the Kroxigors beating it down, I think that is going to be all she wrote, as the High Elves do succumb to army losses, and Talcor will take his first match. So a look at the after battle report. The Star Dragon getting almost 2k in value, and the Dragon Princes as well doing some decent amount of work, even the White Lions. But if we take a look at the Temple Guard, that is kind of where that damage was, as well as the Sacred Kroxigors, just getting 2k in value, very high in damage. I mean, even this was still down getting 2k, so lots of value from those elite troops. The rest of the units didn't do as well, but yeah, the heavy hitters, Temple Guard, Boxigors, and the Bastillodon for the Lizardmen. I mean, with High Elves against the Double Foot Scarvettes, I mean, if you have the Star Dragon I think will do decent work against them, but the problem is there's all those Temple Guard. It's just so hard to deal with it. Yeah, because the mass is just so... Because the Star Dragon needs to get in and out of the engagement, and with the mass changes, it really just can't. Alright, just making a quick little list of the bands. So Talcor wanting to go Wood Elves here. He's going to be probably banning Dwarves, though he will have to pick something other than Lizardmen. Alright, so yeah, Talcor just have to redecide his last ban. Okay, so he'll be banning Empire instead for Wood Elves. So while they pick their armies, I will be right back. All right, so for the for the fourth match of the day, it is going to be Lizardmen versus Wood Elves. So make a little note of that. So normally, I think the Wood Elves potentially have a bit of an advantage here, though there are a few ways that the Lizardmen can deal with them. I know in the Everchosen, when Lotus Moon played Velkon, it was just you use pretty much a chameleon skink screen to allow the Bastillodons to just do all the damage that they need to, and the Bastillodons themselves probably provide a bit more of a threat to some of the newer units that the Wood Elves can bring. So, like the Zotes, for example, a little larger target that they can, and potentially, I mean, Ariel, I don't think you're going to see here either, just because of the Bastillodons, and I mean, generally the larger monster is going to have a little bit better of a job dealing with her, even though her animations do try to provide a bit more of a struggle. I think, yeah, Lizardmen do have the tools needed to win this matchup. As for Wood Elves, I mean, it's pretty much a target-rich environment for their archers. Lots of very expensive units. There's not a whole lot of chaff, or there's definitely not a whole lot of cheap mobility that they can bring. So, Prussian Prince is ready to go, and Talcor should be shortly behind, and we can get going on our next battle. right. I know it's getting later and later for Talcor, so hopefully we can get this kind of finished up for his sake as well. And I think it's probably getting pretty late for a lot of other folks around the globe, for those people in Europe. You know, Manbreed streaming in Russian, so I mean he's up nice and late as well. So let's go. All right, both sides are set. Let's get going. All right, both sides loaded on in. Go over the Lizardmen army first. So we have, looks like Sara Spears for the front line. And they are going to all have the shields as expected against the Wood Elves. We do have double Skink Chiefs on foot. And we do have a Slan Mage Priest of High Magic, who's going to be bringing Tempest, Apotheosis. And we do have Shield of the Old Ones. And we have one more ability there, is the Aura of Quetzal, giving it a little extra armor and melee defense. We do have Chameleon Skinks. We have 5 of those. We have a couple of skink cohorts with javelins. And that is going to be it, as well as a pair of Bastillodons with solar engines, as I was expecting to see. For the Wood Elves, we do have Glade Riders on top of, we have some Way Watchers kind of vanguarded a little bit up front. And we do have Glade Guard with Hagbane tips, doing a little bit of poison onto the field with some magic attacks. And we have Durthu. We have Durthu himself with his big ass sword, and he's going to be putting a hurt on any of the large monsters for the Lizardmen. So he will be going for those Bastillodons. So they will have to do their best to kind of zone him out as best they can. We do have Eternal Guards with shields for that front line, kind of withstand that Chameleon fire as best that they can, and some Glade Riders for mobility. So mobility is going to be in the advantage of the Wood Elves, though they might not be able to get very close with those Bastillodons. So we'll see how well that both sides are able to handle this matchup. Lizardmen definitely going to have a bit of the advantage being able to pull the Wood Elves to them, as they do have the range advantage. That's also one of the good things about bringing the Bastillodons, is that range that they have, is they outrange everything that the Wood Elves do have, forcing them to come to the other way. So we also have the Wild Hunters of Kurnos as well, missed them earlier on. So they do actually have, actually I thought they had Guardian. I'm thinking of the, what is it? It's the mod for the old Wood Elf units. But they will have Frenzy, and they have Vanguard Anti-Large, and they also do have magic damages as well. All right. So both sides, I believe, are ready to go. So Wood Elves do have quite a way to go to catch up to the Lizardmen. It is fairly even in terms of troop count. There is just a ton of these pesky Chameleon Skinks, are going to be quite hard for the Wood Elves to deal with. They do have poison, they'll be slowing things down. They don't have anything that's quite fast enough, because I don't know if, because the Glade Riders, they have 94 speed, so they would be able to catch them, but they'll take quite a bit of damage on the approach. The Bastildons would be able to fire away throughout the course of that, and of course Durthu himself can be very susceptible to those shots, as Prince is ready to go as well. So both sides should be readying up, and then we can both join in on the approach of the Wood Elves. Alright, and we are underway. So Lizardmen going to be moving up a little bit from their position up on high, getting their Bastillodons into range of the Wood Elf, pretty much all their units, pretty much their Glade Riders. Durthu is going to be a good target for them, though of course they are going to be looking for those Way Watchers, which are going to be kind of hiding amongst the rest of the forces. Chameleon Skinks will be taking the approach up front, and these Glade Riders pretty much, I think they're just trying to scout out for them, which they know they're going to be there. They're not going to be, they don't have any counter skirmish or anything like that, so they're just going to be looking to provide visual on these Chameleon Skinks, and the Chameleon Skinks should be able to zone out pretty much everything else, and the Lizardmen should have a nice little approach, though that shot right into the side of the rock. Unfortunate, as it was trying to target these Glade Riders, but shots are opening up from the Glade Guard, trying to focus as many of the units as they can. No real point, I think, in targeting these Chameleon Skinks. I think most of the shots should be going the way of the infantry, trying to clear them out and allow for Durthu to get onto the big high-value targets, and both of these Skink Chiefs going to be doing quite a bit of damage with their, they have fire attacks and magic as well as poison. Actually, no, I was looking at the Bastildon. So they just have poison slowing things down on top. So a ton of poison on the Lizardman side should really be able to slow down the Wood Elf approach. But right now, the Wood Elves are pretty much going to be content with exchanging volleys in with their own archers, and their Way Watchers doing a decent amount of damage to the Bastildon. Now the Slann Mage Priest is a little bit out front here, as it looks like we do get a transformation of Kadan going to get summoned right next to this Slann Mage Priest, and he does not want to be there. That Feral Manicore going to be doing good work on to that mage if he does get on top of him, though the rest of the forces slowly kind of kiting away. These Chameleon Skinks doing some decent amount of poke damage, though that something's going to need to stay close to this Slann, because that Feral Manicore, there's not a whole lot that can really decisively push that Feral Manicore away, and the Skink Cohort's kind of just a little moving forward, while the Skink Chief is going to try and get the attention of that Feral Manicore to look someplace else. Apotheosis is going to be going down on top, as well as the Shield Old One's Aura Quetzal, but Sword of Daith is also popped, giving him minus 30 armor and causing damage on top of that, and Durthu slowly wading his way forward, slowly getting poisoned all the way to his target. But for the first cast of that Feral Manicore, it is going to be being repelled. At least for the most part, it should be routing fairly soon here and shouldn't be a threat for the remainder. But Durthu continuing just to slowly move forward, trying to get on top of that Bastildon, though it looks like he's going to be using his second cast, and the Bastildon firing him right in the face, as here comes that second Feral Manticore summon. Now, the Sora Spears are engaged with the Eternal Guard, while the Skink Cohort are trying to pepper down these Way Watchers in the back, but these Solar Bastildons have taken quite a bit of damage themselves. They have dealt some decent damage to Durthu, but without these Bastildons, there's not a whole lot left. Yeah, Cheesex, I know it's for the High Elves and it's an Eagle. I guess for Durthu, it's still a Feral Manticore, and that could be just because he's Durthu and not the Beastcaster. But I do know that they were supposed to be Treeman Casters is still Feral Manticore. Gotcha. But yeah, again, this second cast of the Feral Manticore is going to be routed off here, so it did both of the casts did about 50% damage to the Slann, but actually it is still sustaining its leadership, so it can still do some more damage. I thought for sure it was going to be routed off. Another Apotheosis going to be cast, giving itself fear, which might be enough to rout that thing off, but both of the Bastildons now free to fire in Durthu, as Durthu is nowhere close by for the rest to really pressure them at this point. The Skink Chief, I think this other Skink Chief needs to kind of pull out of that engagement, continuing firing away with its shots, just continuing poking into Durthu, into the Glade Riders, but things aren't looking so good for the Lizardmen. Balance power a little bit in the Wood Elf favor, but this battle is far from over, as both of the Bastiladons are still pretty isolated at this point, though the range of these Way Watchers is now able to target both of them, and they have tons of ammunition left, and that is going to be, I think, a big problem for the Lizardmen, is that they don't have a really good way to get into those Way Watchers, as one of the units getting very, very low. Another volley coming in. Is it going to be enough to give it cause it to rout? It is wavering, but it is still going to sustain itself, at least for the time being. But Durthu slowly marching his way forward, looking for that Slann, and the other was still down. Now the focus of that Way Watcher fire. Balance power goes back a little bit more towards even, though I think the Wood Elves, they do have a bit of an advantage here because of all of the ammunition that these Way Watchers have left. They are sitting at still over 50% of their ammo, and there is still plenty of very good targets for them to deal with. Now the Sorcerer Spears trying to get into Durthu, keep him away from the Slann, and these Skink Chiefs need to just continually to fire in, try and whittle down Durthu as much as possible, and try and steer clear of these Way Watcher fire for as long as possible, though I don't know how much longer these these Bastiladons with solar engines can last. Though Durthu himself is getting very, very low, as the shots just continually do poke damage over the course of the fight. And one of the Bastiladons has started to rout off, and we'll see, but the balance power is actually in the Lizardmen favor, as Durthu has getting lower and lower, but the value that the Way Watchers can still provide is immense, and that is going to be, I think, the deciding factor, is can those Way Watchers get the shots off that they need where they need it, because I think Durthu at this point is going to be going down. He is routing, and he's not going to be outrunning those Sorcerer Spears anytime soon, and now that we have some units in the rear actually looking to be put some pressure on these Way Watchers and other archer units, though the Bastiladons, I mean, they for the most part have done their job doing as much damage to Durthu as possible, and these Skink Chiefs still have quite a bit of ammo themselves and are going to be a lot harder to snipe out than the rest of the forces. Banishment trying to catch out these Wild Hunters of Kurnos as best they can, and the Eternal Guard trying to deal with the Slann, because that is, now that the Bastiladons is dealt with, dealing with that Slann is going to be very high on the priority list for the Lizardmen. The Lizardmen continuing to edge forward in that balance of power, as these Way Watchers are getting compromised in the back line. These Chameleon Skinks coming in to assist them, and they are just kind of getting sandwiched now, shutting down all of that ranged firepower, and these spears are wavering slowly but surely. They won't really be able to deal with these King Chiefs, at least not very quickly anyway, and the Wild Hunters have been pushed off with that continually poking damage. Dog's getting a little anxious here, a little past her dinner time. But yeah, I think Wood Elves, things not looking so hot, as all of these units, which still have a bunch of ammunition. That, I think, is the saddest part for the Wood Elves, is all the ammunition that both of these have left. They had so much value left to gain, but the Lizardmen will pull through, and they will sustain the barrage, and Prussian Prince will win the best of 5, taking the series 3-1. And the Bastiladons getting about 1,000 per unit, and I think these Skink Chiefs, they only got a little bit of damage value, but they were pretty much providing poison to across the map, and I think, again, all of these Chameleon Skinks, these Skink cohorts, all doing poison damage, I think was just, they slowed down the Wood Elves' advance by as much as they could, eliminating the threat of these Glade Riders. Wild Hunters actually did fairly decently, 1,500 for them, and then shutting down the Way Watchers before they could get all of their shots off. But very, very good series. Lots of very long, drawn-out matches today. But yeah, very, very long, drawn-out matches today. It was quite the series, and Prussian Prince will earn his first slot in the final. So we'll just update the scorecard to show that, and we will update the bracket. Prussian Prince advancing, and we can update our qualifier list. So there we have it. Maybe someday, Phoenix. But yeah, thank you all for playing today. We are back for season 2, of course, so we'll be trying to host the qualifiers as often as we can. I mean, with the holidays, it's going to be a little harder, so it's probably not going to be until after New Year's for the next one, though we will be having some streams over the next couple of weekends, so stay tuned for those. Otherwise, just kind of stay tuned for our normal, mostly daily videos. And I do appreciate all of you for watching the stream today and all of you for participating. And unless there's any other questions from the crowd, I think we will wrap things up before it gets too late for everyone else. All right, so without further ado, let's close it out. Thank you all for watching, and as always, have a good one.